We've formed a quorum. Is the appointed time. Now I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Public Works Subcommittee. In the legislative session in 2016-17, up to the last meeting, we have approved 2 items with a total amount of $13.6352 billion. And today we're going to continue to scrutinize the 7 papers which have not been discussed in the last meeting on the 22nd of February, and the total amount involved is $7.3829 billion. I'd like to remind members here that if you have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the matters discussed today, please, in accordance with ROP 83A, disclose the nature of that interest before you speak. I also like to bring members' attention to ROP 84, which has to do with voting in the case where you have a direct pecuniary interest. All right, item 1, 718CL, and that is the Infrastructure Works for Public Housing Development in Area 54, Tung Chung. Paper number PWSC 2016-17-39, and it is recommended to upgrade 781CL to Category A at an estimated cost of $284.8 million in money of the day prices. The government has, on the 5th of December 2016, consulted the housing panel on the proposed works, and the members supported the administration to submit the proposal to the PWSC for consideration. So the main points of discussion at the meeting have been tabled. So attending the meeting for this item are Mr. Kenneth Leung Young, Transport and Housing Bureau, Mr. Lam Sai Hong, Director of CEDD, and Mr. David Lo Kwok Chung, Chief Engineer, CEDD, and Ms. Anne-Marie Tam Kwai Yi, Chief Architect, Housing Department. Have I got the pronunciation right? All right, members, you may now raise questions. So please press the request to speak button. The first one is Mr. Holden Chow. First round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. On this public housing development project at Area 54 Tung Chung, we have discussed this item at the District Council. I have a few questions for the administration. First, at Yinghei Road, apart from Area 54, there are also 2 private housing development projects and also 1 public housing development estate, Yingtong Estate. So there are altogether 3 housing estates, and the population will be quite big. So we have this new public housing estates. The population will be around 40,000 to 50,000 people. So how is the transport situation like at Yinghei Road? According to our understanding, at Yinghei Road, well, the Yinghei Road may not be able to cope with the picking up and dropping off of passengers of buses, and there aren't enough bus stops on the road either. So there is only 1 bus stop at Yingtong Estate. So after the public housing project at Area 54 has been completed, there is a demand for more bus stops in the area, and the Yinghei Road is lacking bus stops at the moment. And also in the paper, it is stated that you will have a lay-by, public transport lay-by, and that is circled in the plan. And in the future, that may have connections to different housing estates in the area. So would there be any footbridges there to facilitate pedestrians walking along that area? Thank you. Mr. Leung Yan. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to transport, I would say something about the hardware and then also the software. In terms of the hardware, Yinghei Road, it doesn't have a bus stop now. So in our proposed projects, bus stops will be provided, or bus laybys will be provided at 3 locations. One is the eastbound lane at Yinghei Road, and there will be 2 bus laybys to be built. which can take care of the needs of the buses. And also in the new road leading into Area 54, near where the housing development is, along the pavement, there will be another bus lay-by. So that's so much for the hardware. So there will be all kinds of transport support facilities. Concerning the software, the TD has given us certain information, and they said that they will have a regard to the development schedule and also the population intake schedule of Area 54, and then they will come up with the relevant transport support facilities, and the District Council will be consulted duly. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Lam, do you have anything to add? Thank you, Chairman. Yinghei Road, there are now 2 lanes, eastbound and westbound. In our works area, there will be 4 lanes instead of 2 lanes under our project. So after that expansion works have been completed, there should be enough capacity on the roads to cope with the traffic needs. Thank you. Ms. Tenyan Chan for 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask about paragraph 9. You said that you would be delivering the works under the new engineering contract. There is a footnote to it. So can you provide us with a template of the contract or sample of the contract? And you said that it is a contract form that emphasizes cooperation, mutual trust, and collaborative risk management between contracting parties. How is it different from past contracts? In terms of the responsibilities, how will it be different? In case there are litigations, how will it be like? I don't get the meaning of the words. Chairman, well, this is not something new. So who will take that question? Mr. Lam, Director. Thank you, Chairman. Under the project proposal, we will be using this new engineering contract model. Well, this is nothing new, I would say. That started in the 90s in the UK. In Hong Kong, we started adopting this model for some projects in 2009. For the new engineering contract, the gist of it is that the 2 sides will play a more active role in coming up with a contract. Say, if there are disputes, we should deal with them within a certain prescribed time frame, and we should sit down and discuss and negotiate, and we should reach an agreement. So compared to the traditional contract model, in dealing with disputes and also in dealing with variations in the contracts, we can resolve those in a shorter time frame. So the risks are to be borne by both sides may be lower. Maybe we used to spend a lot more time in resolving the dispute, so that would not be the case anymore. So how would you, on what basis would you decide on using this new contract model? You said that certain things will be resolved within a certain time frame, then there will be mutual trust and so on. So would you have a smaller pool of contractors to choose from under this new model? As I said, well, for many of our projects, we are using this new contract type already. We will also look at whether the relevant contracts have the capacity to take on such contracts. And starting 2009, the different contractors have done a lot of training in relation to the contract model. And in fact, many of the new engineering contracts have been completed. In fact, most of our projects are using this new engineering contract model. The member mentioned about the limited time frame. Whether it's us or the engineers or the contractors, their staff and those involved in the contract are familiar with this model. So I think we've been doing fine so far with this new engineering contract. Can I suggest that you provide a paper after the meeting to list the differences between the new engineering contract and the old contract? Can you do a comparison so that we get to understand it better? And also, under what circumstances would you adopt this model? Yes, that can be done. Mr. Yu Wing, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. We're on the cost estimate. The prices are drawn up based on the prices in September 2016, and the works will only commence in July this year. Well, as we all know, there have been delays in works. Well, in case if you can't commence works in July, do you think the cost estimate can still be valid for some time beyond that? And do you think that the estimated cost is valid up to the very day when your works commence, no matter when your works will commence? Now, you are right, member. We were basing our estimated cost based on the September 2016 prices. Well, we are spending the money over a period of several years. Our estimate is that the works can commence in the middle of this year, and we are confident that the schedule can be adhered to. Now, if there has been, or is there a delay, will the cost be insufficient? We do have contingencies in the budget. Unless there is a serious delay, we have every confidence that the cost estimate should suffice. Thank you, Chairman. There is a price adjustment provision and also contingencies. How is the relationship between the two items? If there is a delay, will you be paying out of the item of contingencies or provision of price adjustments? Concerning the $40 million for provision for price adjustment, that is to cater for the changes in the prices from the prices in September 2016 and the date when the prices or the costs are actually paid. So in that period there may be inflation, so as a result there has to be a price adjustment. Now concerning the contingencies, that is for the entire project, maybe there are unforeseen circumstances, so that's why we need a contingency to deal with that. Thank you, Chairman. I have a second question. With regard to the cycle parking area, you have a cycle track, so you must build a cycle parking area. How many parking spaces will be there? Does the government have a certain standards in coming up with a number? Do you base your figure on, say, the population figure? You have 10,000 people there. So would you be drawing up the number of spaces based on the population, or would you be arriving at the figure based on the actual circumstances in that location? Mr. Lang, we do have a location for building a cycle parking area. There will be 60 parking spaces. Apart from that, in Tung Chung area 54, in the public housing estate there are certain cycle parking spaces to be provided as well. Mr. Chen Han Pen, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. In relation to the public housing development at this area, well, that has been discussed at the Islands District Council. I'm concerned about the situation in Tung Chung now, the parking spaces. I don't see any mentioning about the number of car parking spaces in the location in the paper. So how would you deal with that? That's the first question. Second question. Many cars have to go through Tat Tung Road to go to the MTR station. And the Tat Tung Road has been saturated already. So I hope that the government, if you are going to build public housing in the area, you have to look at Tat Tung Road and Heng Tung Street. The traffic situation there has to be taken on board. We don't want to add extra burden to the traffic situation in the town center of Tung Chung. So in terms of the car parks and also the traffic situation in Tat Tung Road, would you be considering and looking at those two aspects? Mr. Lang. Thank you, Chairman. On the car parking spaces, the Housing Department will provide car parking spaces based on the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines. And in Area 54, Public Housing Development, there will be 220 private car parking spaces to be provided. As for the traffic impact on the town center, we have talked to the Transport Department, which has been looking closely at the situation, especially the congestion at Tat Chung Road. The TD has looked at the situation. Many cars are picking up and dropping off their passengers there, and as a result, there has been congestion. And they will be sort of reintegrating and consolidating the different laybys there.
Chairman, based on the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, Tung Chung is a relatively remote area, and some people might drive to work if they work in that area. At Fu Tung Estate, their car park is full every day. For the shopping centers nearby, their car parks are also full every single day. There's a serious lack of parking space in Tung Chung. Ying Tung Road is rather far from the town center. If enough parking lots can be provided, then you can prevent illegal parking. So I hope the government can consider that. Anyone? Thank you. We will consider providing for an appropriate number of parking lots in the area. Mr. Ray Chan, 4 minutes. Thank you. This funding application deals with new roads and sewage facilities. And this is basic infrastructure for the public housing development at Area 54 of Tung Chung. And however, we know very little about this public housing development. Apparently, Area 54 will provide 3,300 residential units, but we don't know whether they are private or residential flats. And how many stories or blocks will there be? Can you give us any details? For residential developments in Tung Chung, we would always ask the same questions. It's close to the airport. Have you considered whether exhaust from aircrafts will affect the health of public housing residents in the future? We have the Hong Kong Chai Macau Bridge and the third runway. Have you done any relevant studies? Mr. Leung? Thank you. The first question was about public housing development. I would invite the Chief Architect of the Housing Department to offer a response. The second question was about the environment. The Housing Department conducted an environmental assessment. If we are to develop Area 54 of Tung Chung in terms of noise, nuisance, air quality, etc., assessments have been made. and there wouldn't be any negative impacts on the aspects I just mentioned. As for noise from aircrafts, Area 54 of Tung Chung is outside of the 1,000-meter radius of the airport, so it wouldn't be affected by noise. In terms of air quality, we also made assessments. They comply with the air quality indicators established in 2014. Can Ms. Anne-Marie Tam brief us on the environmental aspects? At Area 54 of Tung Chung, the Housing Authority would develop subsidized rental housing. There will be 3,300 flats, and which is same as what we proposed at the Islands District Council last year. At the District Council, we mentioned that there would be 8 buildings for a total of 3,300 flats. District councillors raised views or comments on the number of blocks. We are still at the design stage. So based on comments from district councillors, we would also take other factors into account. For example, ventilation, the environment, building height restriction, etc. before we decide on the number of blocks. Later, we will have it vetted by the HA. For the record, so what were the comments? Do they want more or less? We are worried about a possible shelter effect. At the Islands District Council, there were views that there should be less blocks, and we would consider views such as these. But we do have to strike a balance, for example, whether there would be a shelter effect, and we also have to consider the ventilation. Mr. Wuchiwai, 4 minutes. Thank you. The Democratic Party supports the development of public housing development in Area 54, and we should carry out basic infrastructure works to facilitate the project. And I have 2 questions. Whenever we develop cycle parks or tracks in rural areas, then we would try to construct parking lots or fixed parking lots. However, bicycles are often parked at laybys rather than parking lots. You would know if you have been to the mainland in recent years. There would be compartments at these laybys. Otherwise, you might receive complaints that bicycles are parked casually. Can you make use of the concept of bicycle laybys in order to maximize the number of bikes you can accommodate? And this is only pragmatic. If you use laybys, well, if you come up with parking lots, people wouldn't use them properly anyway. And at Tung Chung, there are a lot of cyclists who would use bikes to reach MTR station. What about the parking lots at Tung Chung MTR station? Would you enhance such facilities? This way, you can encourage the use of bikes as a mode of connection, especially for those who use the MTR. Would you consider introducing facilities at both places? With such facilities, we wouldn't just be relying on buses, minibuses, or private vehicles. We can use bicycles to commute between the MTR station and this new area. Who can take this question? Mr. Kent Leung. Thank you very much. in terms of cycle parking area, I'm sure my colleagues will consider these views. And in the vicinity of Area 54 of Tung Chung and the town center, the Transport Department has been monitoring the situation, and at the urban area, there are 2 cycle parking areas, one at Heng Tong Street and to another shopping center, and it can provide a few hundred parking lots for bikes. And at the town center in Area 54, there are cycle parking areas for residents. Do you mean that at Area 54 of Tung Chung, it would be connected to the town center, including the MTR station? As for the detailed alignment or routes, perhaps the CDD can give more. Please be brief. Mr. Lam. Along Yinghei Road, the cycle track would extend westwards to reach the Tung Chung MTR station and the town center. Next, Professor Edward Yu. First round, 4 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to ask about the estimated expenditure of the 240 million. The 3 main sources of expenditure include carriageways and road improvement works, and the second part, around 80 million, would be used for the construction of sewers. For the third component, we are looking at 39 million, and some facilities or words sound redundant, and for example, ancillary works including drainage, water works. So what does water works refer to? Does it mean water supply? And again, it talks about landscaping works. So what is the difference between this and road improvement works in item A? How would you justify the $39 million spent? Mr. Lam? Thank you. On item C, I would invite our Chief Engineer, Mr. Low, to explain it. Item C involves about 39 million, and it includes ancillary works, and these are related to the roads and sewers. And what do these include? They include drainage, and for stormwater, we need a system to discharge the water, and waterworks refers to drinking water, etc. For details, I would invite Mr. Low to supplement. Mr. David Low, for item C, the ancillary works include the drainage system for the new carriageway, and we would also lay freshwater pipes to Area 54 for residential developments, and cycle tracks for the new carriageway, etc. So the landscaping works would be related to the 500-meter carriageway, and the same applies to the drainage works as well. So is this different from the road improvement works mentioned in item A? That part applies to the north of Yinghei Road. So these refer to different locations. So the drainage works are relatively expensive. So would the water be processed centrally, and the drainage works include sewage collection. The drainage system includes the laying of pipes, and the sewers or the sewage is not processed centrally. The sewage system would include almost 1 kilometer of sewers at Area 54 connecting to the pumping station of the Drainage Services Department, and this sewer would span several roads, including the Airport Express line, Tung Chung line, North Lantau Road, etc., and the length is 900 meters. We have to, it has to pass or cross a few main links, so a trenchless method must be adopted. Mr. Wuchiwai, I'd like to ask about the cycle tracks. Apparently, the cycle track is not continuous according to the map. Can you explain the alignment to us? Is it continuous or not? Mr. Lam, when we look at the plan right now, there would be cycle tracks along Yinghe Road towards the east and west, and to the left it would pass through the Waterfront Road and it would reach Tat Tung Road. It would then connect to the cycle network near MTL Tung Chung Station. Mr. Wuchiwai, the plan is very simple, so can they provide more details? I'd like to know whether the cycle track is disjointed. In other words, do cyclists have to stop at every major junction? And or have you learned from the case of Tin Shui Wai and Yuen Long North? Can you facilitate proper connectivity to facilitate cyclists? At Area 54, there are various residential developments. What is the projected total population? How likely will residents choose to cycle as a mode of transport? Mr. Lam? Along Waterfront Road, we have cycle tracks. It's basically on the same level as roads. So if they are to cross the road, so in other words, it is disjointed. We would look into that. At Tung Chung East and Tung Chung West, we are conducting designs. We would take this opportunity to look at the entire cycle track network to see how we can improve the cycle track network in Tung Chung. This way we can bring more convenience to cyclists. Can you offer the relevant information after the meeting? Because I asked the same question in the last Finance Committee meeting. I think we should do something about the signaling system to facilitate cyclists. Can the director provide relevant papers after the meeting? Mr. Roy Kwong, 4 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the development of residential blocks in these areas, and hopefully more details can be provided to alleviate our worries. I talk about these number areas, so-called number areas. I grew up in Tin Shui Wai, and right at the beginning, some certain estates had no names. They were only represented by numbers. Apart from meeting residential needs, we are looking at wider issues for the entire generation. The development of Tin Shui Wai North was a lesson worth learning. At that time, the then Chief Executive Donald Chang said he almost owed the residents of Tin Shui Wai, because at that time there was no transport connectivity, there was no light rail, they could not buy daily groceries, there was no hospital, and we only had accident and emergency services recently at Tin Shui Wai Hospital. We should learn that lesson. We should avoid the same planning tragedies. And we need to think about the ancillary facilities when we have residential developments. And I'm concerned about the provision of wet markets. As the population grows, how can the government ensure that residents would have access to wet markets? And I'm also worried about transportation. At Tin Shui Wai North at the beginning, K route buses had to be used to take residents to the MTR, and the frequencies were highly unstable at the beginning. These are very relevant to the residents. We must provide the proper ancillary facilities. I had that impression at the beginning. Later, I became Yunnan District Councillor, and I realized that the government only patched up different deficiencies afterwards by introducing wet markets, etc. But I want to say that the residents had been there for 10 years before support was being given. So can you provide a timeline on, for example, population growth, and whether you have thought about these facilities, and whether you are facing any challenges? I'd like to pinpoint transportation and wet markets. Mr. Lang, please.
Thank you, Chairman. For this item, we're talking about Tung Chung Area 54. Regarding the members' comments, I believe that our Bureau may not be able to fully respond to the members' aspirations. In respect of the development of Area 54, we would be able to provide the information. There are two aspects. First of all, the supporting facilities, and secondly, the transport arrangements. As far as the transport situation is concerned, we've already explained that in Area 54 in Tung Chung, there are already two private developments where population has already moved in. The TD last year already consulted the Islands District Council and proposed, the suitable bus services. When population begin to move in Area 54, we will consider the situation at the time and provide bus services accordingly. Mr. Chi Hoi Tik, thank you. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Wuchuai's question regarding cycle tracks. The Bureau said that along Hing Tong Street there are already parking spaces for bicycles, which can facilitate the residents in Area 54 to cycle there, although the track is truncated. So for Hing Tong Street, for the parking lot, bicycle parking lot at Hing Tong Street, it is not covered and is not really managed by anyone. And very often it has become, a cemetery for abandoned bicycles. When the Tung Chung residents don't want to park the bicycles there, because all the railings there, at the railings there, people who park the bicycles there would have their bicycles stolen or the wheels taken away, and only the frame remains. So if you're planning for the provision of parking facilities for bicycles, will you upgrade such facilities so that the situation is not like what it is now, where it is totally not managed at all? I think there should be proper management so that the residents, when they park the bicycles there, they wouldn't have to worry that the bicycles will be stolen, or that the situation will not be so chaotic. regarding the management of bicycles. That is a rather complex issue, but then the residents are also concerned about this. Perhaps at the relevant panel, we should find an opportunity to discuss that issue in detail. Perhaps, Mr. Leung, you can respond to Mr. Chu's question. I don't have anything further to respond. I suggest that this issue be discussed at the meeting of the transport panel, because this really is a question about the management or regulation of bicycle parking lots in different parts of the territory. I understand, Chairman. Are there any other officials who would like to immediately respond? Because this is not only a question of the design of the parking lot for bicycles, it also is a question about management. In other countries and even in the mainland, they have their own rules and system to manage these parking lots for bicycles. I don't think we will be able to discuss the subject in detail at this committee. Chairman, I hope you understand that for if we have a public works project, if that project itself involves bicycles, naturally we would have to consider about the question for the entire community. So since I only have one more minute, I'd like to follow up on Mr. Roy Kwong's question about wet markets. Earlier, Mr. Ko Wing Man, the Secretary, said that at Tung Chung and Hong Shui Kiu the government will be building 2 wet markets. But for Area 54, I don't see that you are proposing to provide a wet market there. The residents who live there are very concerned as to would like to know where will the wet market be located. Will it be in the vicinity of Area 54? Ms. Tam, thank you. Mr. Chi is asking a question about the wet market. In designing the housing development for any area, we will take all factors into consideration when planning for the ancillary facilities, for example, whether there are facilities in the vicinity and the facilities in the periphery of the area. In the vicinity of Area 54, in Area 56 at Leitung Estate, it will be completed soon, and there will be a wet market there with more than 40 stores selling wet goods. So in Area 54, we have not yet planned for a wet market for the time being. For the other areas, now since Area 54 is part of the extended portion of Tung Chung, and there are many GIC facilities there, so the government will by then consider whether or not there is a need to provide for such facilities. Time's up. Mr. Chi Hoi Taek, your second round, 3 minutes. Let us follow up on the same question. So you now have the outline planning plan, which is now being deliberated by the town planning board. So does it mean that the future wet market will be located in the GIC site of the outline zoning plan? No. In Area 54 of Tung Chung, we will not be providing for a wet market. But as to whether or not we need to build a wet market in another area, the government will consider that in detail. But Ms. Tam said that in Area 56 there should be a wet market. Yes, that is true. So residents in Area 54 can walk to Area 56. Yes, it's very close. The residents can walk to that market within 10 minutes. My other question is this. For this area, you have planned to build HOS flats here. For the T&H Bureau, when processing this application, and in deciding whether or not the project should be for PRH rental units or HOS, does the Bureau have any say? I think that matter has been discussed at the housing panel already. Are there any further supplements from the officials? No. Chairman, I think this committee is concerned that on one hand we need to build housing units, but we also want to provide affordable housing. And even our colleagues from the FTU saying that the HOS units are so expensive. Since the prices of HOS flats are not adjusted, and now we're going to embark on these public works projects, we build HOS units which the people cannot afford, then I would rather prefer that you use the site to build PRH rental units instead. So where can we discuss this issue? I think that would need to be discussed at the housing panel, because in the 10-year housing development plan, Chairman, we are talking about Area 54 here. Well, I think the housing panel has already discussed this, and they have agreed to forward this proposal to the PWSC. And we're here to discuss the infrastructure and the ancillary facilities. As for the strategy for housing development, that is not actually on the agenda of this committee today. It should have been discussed by the housing panel already at its earlier meeting. I hope the Bureau can confirm whether that is true. So, all right, a simple response perhaps from the officials. That is correct. Earlier, in respect of this project, that is, the proposal to build, HOS units at this site, we've already reported to the housing panel, which had already discussed the subject, and members of the panel have been, are also aware of this project. All right. If there are no further questions, I propose that we put this paper to the vote. Those in favor? We don't have a quorum yet. We're missing one member. Okay, let's ring the bell.
哦，打咗5分鐘啦，咁樣。
The bell will ring for 5 minutes.
夠人，打啦，唔緊要。我夠人啦。
We have a quorum now.
就係 quorum bell 就得。 彩啦，今朝情況比較順利，冇咩特別再搞。
We will now proceed to vote, and this is the first item for the morning. This is the infrastructure works for public housing development at Area 54 Tung Chung, and this is paper 39. If there's no objection, we will now, begin to vote. Before I declare that the voting is closed, please verify your votes. The poll is now closed. We will display the results. 26 present, 25 in favor, no objections, so the item is approved. Next, we'll move on now to the second item, 186 GK, Ancillary Facilities Block at Chunkwano, Area 65. This is paper 40. Members are invited to recommend to the AFC to upgrade 186 GK to Category A at an estimated cost of $235.2 million in money of the day prices for the construction of the Ancillary Facilities Block at Chunkwano, Area 65. And the details, the item has been discussed at the Public Works panel, and officials in attendance for this item are already present. I will not read out their names. So if members have any questions, please press the button. If there are no questions, I shall now... Oh yes, we have a question from Mr. Choitek. 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask a question about the site where you propose to build the activity center. What is the proposed plot ratio? Have you made full use of the plot ratio for the site? I think in our society we have, there is always a shortage of sites to build, residential care homes for the elderly. Can we add such facilities here? Now, who would like to respond? Ms. Tam. Thank you. To answer Mr. Chi's question, for the ancillary facilities block, regarding the plot ratio, we would consider this in total for the development of the whole lot. And the whole lot would include residential sites for residential and non-residential development. And we've already almost made use up the maximum plot ratio. So, Chairman, so does that mean that in planning terms, so this is not an independent GIC site, but rather it's part of the site for public housing development. So this is not an independent GIC site. It is part of the site for the development of public housing. But it could also be approved for the construction of government facilities. So if it exceeded the plot ratio, has it exceeded the plot ratio according to the buildings ordinance, or is it that in the OCP you've already exceeded the plot ratio stipulated in the OCP? I don't think they have exceeded the plot ratio, Ms. Tam. So what do you mean by there is a cap? I think it has already reached the maximum. The ceiling as set by the buildings ordinance, or is it the ceiling in the OCP? Well, we follow the ceiling as stipulated in the OCP. In the outline zoning plan, there is a stipulation for the plot ratio for this site, and I think we are already nearing the maximum. Other than the Sai Kung District Council, which you have consulted regarding this project, did you arrange for any consultation with the residents regarding the proposal for this site? Consultation. Ms. Tam?
Thank you, Chairman. The Housing Authority has consulted the Sai Kung District Council, and that we did 2 consultations in November 2014 and also in 2015. Apart from District Council, we didn't hold any residents' gatherings. At the District Council, many members have already talked to the residents and the principals of schools there. So we have collected a lot of information from the several consultation sessions. Any follow-up? Can I press the button once more? Yes. Yes. Can I? Yes, please. Or second round, 3 minutes. There will be 5 welfare facilities at the ancillary facilities block. In planning for such a block with various welfare facilities, regarding its size and its and the needs that it will cater for, are you following the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines? How did you arrive at your figures? The planning requirements have been raised by the Social Welfare Department. So can I ask Mr. Kwok, the Assistant Director of Social Welfare, to take that question? Yes, please switch on the mic for Mr. Kwok. No, not yet. Yes. Hello. Thank you, Chairman. In response to members' question, when we consider such facilities, we follow a set of standards with regard to the size and the area of such facilities. And that will also depend on the people in the district on the waiting list. So we look at the people on the waiting list and also our general planning standards and decide on the areas or the size of the facilities. And also we have to have regard to the total area in the block. So these are the several things factored into in our decision on the size of the facilities. Why did I raise this question? Because in different communities, people have been asking whether we do have a territory-wide standard. Say, for example, if we have a certain population size, then different needs will arise, and then we should at least reach the minimum standards in providing for such facilities. Different residents in different districts may strive for the facilities that they need most. I think the standards are not clear. Different districts will have different planning based on their own situations, and there is no standardized platform. There is no benchmark standard as such. So is it up to the different districts to make their own considerations? Mr. Kwok, we would have regard to the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines in our planning. At present, there are two factors taken on board. One is the population size, and that is in relation to the integrated family service center and also the integrated youth service centers. And except for these two, we will have regard to basket factors, including the existing facilities, the population to be served, and also other environmental factors. We think this is a more flexible approach. In service planning, we would also bear in mind the people on the waiting list, the needs, and also we will consult the different sectors before we make a decision. Ms. Tanya Chan, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the different access or connection points. There are public and private housing estates, and also there is the Cheung Kwan O MTR station. Say, if we want to take MTR, does it mean that people have to use the lift to get to the place, or do you expect people to enter the building at grade? I originally thought there might be footbridge connection. So do you expect that the main entrance will be at grade? It seems so from the plans. Who to take that question? Ms. Tam. Thank you, Chairman. That's right. The entrance of this building is at grade, and for the housing development there, we have put the entrance at the Chixin Street, and people can use the lift of the block and get to the various welfare facilities. Concerning the activity center, and actually that can be accessed directly at grade, at the at-grade entrance. Concerning the vehicles, there is this plan showing the layout plan, site plan for the barrier-free or barrier-free entrance exit. So does it mean that vehicles and also pedestrians would use that exit at that entrance? At Chin Street, there are two pedestrian crossings, and if people are going there by vehicles, can the vehicles actually get inside the building, or the vehicles have to drop off their passengers at the street? The vehicular entrance is at the very left, the one was shown with a yellow arrow. And after the vehicles get through that, there will be a common carriageway to be used both by the ancillary facilities block and also the housing development. And then through that, there will be a car park for the vehicles. My concern is that there will not be any danger when people get off the vehicles, and that the vehicles do not be standing in the way of traffic, right? So there will be space inside the building for picking up and dropping off passengers, right? Yes, I'm concerned about the connection point. Mr. Eddie Chu, third round, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Recently, on the Facebook, I saw videos from overseas, and these videos show that if these are the elderly centers, if they can be sort of integrated with childcare centers, then we can allow the elderly and the children to mingle with each other, and that does good for the psychological well-being of the elderly and as well as the healthy growth of children. So I would like to ask the SWD, when you plan for such integrated service facilities, would you have the mindset that, say, the elderly center will be segregated from other facilities like the the youth centers and also the childcare centers? Can you make a breakthrough in your mindset so that the different people from the different age groups can mingle somewhere in the building? Yes, thank you. Mr. Ju, for your question. We have all along been promoting integration. Well, in redevelopment projects and also in planning for large-scale service buildings, we are also thinking about how to put the different services together, and we would also be considering how there should be more interaction and more common spaces can be created, so that there will be also more diversified programs for everyone. And in future redevelopment projects and development projects, the concept of integration would definitely be incorporated. So with regard to this particular project, how do you realize that such a concept? Well, the different welfare facilities are going to be operated by different organizations. So for this building, the different facilities are sort of separated. So can there be sort of activities which can be participated by both the elderly and the children? People from different age groups can participate in certain activities together. Well, if we are going to provide service in the future, we can incorporate that kind of mindset. Well, the administration said that they do have such a concept, but it's that they can't realize it in this present project. Well, I think that what Mr. Kok is saying, that there are different needs from different age groups, so that's why there are different welfare facilities. But then in terms of the services, that would be sort of sharing concept which will be incorporated. All right, Mr. Huang, 4 minutes. Well, there is a strong community need for such services. You talk about the Integrated Family Service Center, Special Childcare Service. Can I have a figure first? Does the administration have figures on the need for such services in the district, and whether there is an acute shortage of the services in the district? Do you have such figures, Mr. Kok? Okay, let me go through the service one by one. Say, for example, the Neighborhood Elderly Center in Sai Kung District. There are 5 such centers already. The members, 3,300 in number. I think that's the situation is quite satisfactory. And with regard to Special Childcare Center, 94 are on the waiting list for Special Childcare Center service. So the need has not been fully met. So in this particular project, we have planned for such center to increase the number of places. For IFSC, for the entire district, there are now 3 centers. Concerning Early Education and Training Center in Sai Kung and Tseung Kwan O, there are 2 centers. Youth Reaching Team, we have now 2 day teams and 1 teams working in the evening. Thank you for your information. In fact, well, of course, the demand is keen. What I'm worried, well, maybe it's not very relevant, earlier on in the Tung Chung 06 Area 65 C2, the media carry reports that there are substandard tiles being used for the development. Well, the standard is 45 MPa, but then for the HOS, the 44.7 MPa tiles are being used. I'm not the expert here, but I'm worried whether only here substandard materials will again be used. Have you considered that? So who will answer that question, please? Mr. Long, do you know about that? For this project, with regard to the requirements on the construction materials, we'll follow the government standards and also the standards of the HA and the RTSD. So member doesn't have to be worried at all. Thank you. There is another news report saying, well, that it's only that these things come into light because there have been reports by those engineering staff. So we are worried, and I think we should ask the administration to do a better job in the future to allay the public's worry. Maybe I would be raising the same question on another occasion. We are very worried about the quality of the works. Mr. Junius Ho, 4 minutes. For this $235 million, the consultancy fee, $10 million, 12.5% of the construction cost. Is there any room to adjust that downwards? Can the government departments take on that job, and we don't have to pay to the HA the $19.7 million? And for this project, and $80 million will be spent on building the 5 welfare facilities. Well, does it a sum of B, C, D, and also some other sums? So how can we get a clearer picture of the figure? Is it the construction cost together with the interior decoration cost that will add up to a total of $83 million? And C and D, the total amount is over $100 million. How are these figures arrived at? The HA is showing responsibility of monitoring the works, hence the cost payable to them. Mr. Long. The AFB falls within the site of the HA development site. So if we entrust the project to the HA, there will be benefits. So because of this, we have this on cost, and that includes a design, management of the contract, and also monitoring of the works. And that has been the established practice all along if we are to entrust the works to the HA, and that is a figure used all along. And for the $83.1 million, can I ask the Ms. Yu from the Architectural Services Department to take that question? Ms. Yu. For the 5 welfare facilities, the construction costs will be reimbursed by the lotteries fund after the completion of the works. This is very much an integrated service building. There are common facilities or works, for example, site formation, piling works, etc. That would be that applies to all facilities. So we would apportion the amount to the different facilities based on the areas taken up by each facility. So this is very much still an estimate. We will be adjusted after the tender exercise has been completed. Can I follow up? I have the first question. This 12.5% of the construction cost, is this a norm? My impression is that there is this total construction cost, and we're paying 12.5% for this indirect item. What is the basis for doing that? You said that this is a norm, the usual practice. 12.5% used to be the figure in the past. Do we still need that high a proportion now? The HA and HD is a public body and public government department. And what do you have a scientific basis for coming up with this figure? Is there any economic efficiency? Is there any room for review of that figure? Can you make a simple reply? If we ask the RHSD to do it, the RHSD would also be charging us the same amount for the project. Mr. Tung Chung, 4 minutes. Thank you. I notice that the energy saving and also greening items are involved. We're talking about $200 million, and we're talking about $1.7 million for these items only. The additional energy conservation, green and recycled features. Now, vertical greening is not like a school premises. So what good does it do if we have vertical greening? You said that there would be a payback period of 8.3 years, but I don't see how you're going to maintain the vertical greening part. And what about the daily maintenance cost? You said that you have a payback period of 8.3 years, and it sounds as if it is really worth doing.
Vertical greening is certainly not a bad thing, but maintenance is rather painstaking. Can you address this question? Once it's completed, what would be the maintenance costs? I'm referring to vertical greening. A question on vertical greening. And just like at-grade greening, maintenance would be required. Can you share any information about costs with us, Mr. Leung? In terms of vertical greening, we will factor in the design and maintenance costs, and they will strike a balance between design and maintenance in order to achieve sustainability. For rooftop greening, I find it appropriate because everyone would be able to enjoy it. Is vertical greening just to lower the temperature, or is this only a visual improvement? Is this really necessary? I hope the government can share its policy with us. You might not have such figures on hand on maintenance costs. Can you share them with us in writing? I think that would be more appropriate. I think the housing department would know the design and construction costs for vertical greening. So can you provide the information after the meeting? I'd like to know their policy as well. Is vertical greening essential? I would not be against rooftop greening, but for vertical greening, I think it's more aesthetic than pragmatic. It's hard to maintain the flowers and plants. Yes, we will provide information in writing after the meeting. Dr. Edward Yu. I'm heartened by the paper because The energy efficient features will achieve 3% energy savings every year with a payback period of 8.3 years. If you adopt photovoltaic systems, can you achieve a payback period of 8.3 years? Can you provide more details on how you can achieve high energy savings with a short payback period? Mr. Leung. Thank you. We can provide the information in writing after the meeting. The energy savings in this project are satisfactory. Are you going to apply for higher certification from certain certification bodies? Who can take this question? Ms. Tam? I can talk a little bit about the energy savings. As Dr. Yu said, apart from solar panels, we have other devices. For example, solar power devices, etc., which can also achieve energy savings. With regards to certification, at this point, we are not looking at any certifications. The reason is that in the entire development, it would have to be certified by Beam Plus. The details are rather inadequate. Can you provide more details on the 3% energy savings and payback period later? For example, this complex, we cannot achieve a payback yet. So when I see a payback period of 8.3 years, it's rather encouraging. So hopefully you can provide more details. We can provide the information after the meeting. If we have no further questions, I will put this item to the vote. Let's ring the quorum bell. We have a quorum. If we have no further questions, I will put this item to the vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. So everyone is in favor. We have no objections or abstentions. And this item would be put forward to the Finance Committee. Item number 3 for today. Let's invite the administration in. This is Project 111 ET, a special school for students with mild, moderate, and severe intellectual disabilities in Area 108 of Tung Chung. And we are looking at PWSC 2016-17-41. This paper recommends the upgrading of 111 ET to Category A at an estimated cost of 334.7 million in money of the day prices. And on the 12th of December 2016, the government consulted the education panel on the proposed project, and members support the submission of the funding recommendation to the PWSC, and a summary has been circulated with members. Today we have Mr. Kevin Young, Undersecretary for Education, Mrs. Elena Chan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Education, Mr. Chen Fu Man, Principal Education Officer, Mr. Leung Kun Ki, Director of Architectural Services, and Ms. Winnie Ho, Project Director of ArcSD. First up, Ms. Elsmack, 4 minutes. Chairman, we welcome the construction of this school. Our district councillor in Tung Chung has been communicating with parents and meeting the Education Bureau in recent years, and we look forward to the construction of this school. I have a few questions. I see that there would be dormitory places or boarding places in this school. How many students would be boarding in this school? For those who do not board in the school, what are the transportation arrangements? Because it's quite far from the city center. And at Tung Chung, we have a lot of ethnic minorities. Some school children might have such needs. In the future, will this school admit students of ethnic minorities? Mr. Kevin Young. We have about 200 school places and about 60 boarding places. So in terms of design, about 140 students would have to commute between the school every day. Under our policy, for moderately and severely intellectually handicapped, school coach service would be provided. For the students with mild intellectual disabilities, they would have to make commutes every day. We have discussed this with the school, and we intend to arrange transportation, and the students and parents might have to bear part of the costs, but school coach service would be provided, and near the school there would be several bus routes as well, so there won't be big issues in transportations. As for the ethnic minorities, special schools are not divided into Chinese-speaking or non-Chinese-speaking schools, so the needs of non-Chinese-speaking children would be taken care of. For ethnic minorities or non-Chinese-speaking students, they can opt for this school. For EM or NCS students with such needs, if they are admitted into this school, while for mainstream schools you would allocate special resources, would you do the same for this school? Mr. Young? And this is in line with our policy for NCS students. It depends on the eventual number of NCS students they admit. Mr. Holden Chow, 4 minutes. Thank you. For this special school in Area 108 of Tung Chung, we have been talking about it at the Equal Opportunities Commission, and we have been expecting such schools for a number of years. And I have one question. This school will provide about 200 school places as well as 60 boarding places. In terms of teaching manpower arrangements by the EDB, how many teachers do you intend to hire? And will there be resident teachers to take care of the boarders? What are the arrangements? Thank you. Mr. Young. In special schools and the boarding section, there is a specific manpower ratio. For special primary schools. The ratio is 1.7 for junior secondary and 1.9 for senior secondary. And for moderately ID students, and the severely ID students, the ratio is about 8 per class. Based on these formula, we will have about 40 teachers or teaching staff. As for non-teaching staff, we have about 15, including speech therapists and social workers. For non-specialized posts, for example, clerical posts and teaching assistants, we have about 29 to 30. As for the boarding section, we will have wardens, nurses, etc. We have about 40 staff members. So the number of staff is determined by the design, and it would be adjusted based on the number of classes and students. For example, if there are more senior secondary classes, then the manpower provision would be adjusted as well. Thank you very much. You said there would be 40 staff members for the boarding section, so there would be on-site staff as yes. There would be staff around the clock divided into, say, 2 shifts. There might be more people in the daytime than at night. Thank you. Mr. Roy Kwong, 4 minutes. Can you provide figures on the ratio of social workers? We've had discussions that the ratio of social workers is in a serious imbalance. Can you provide such figures? The ratio of social workers follows our existing policy. At this school, we should have 2.5 social workers. So how many ID students would each social worker have to take care of? If we have 200 students, then each social worker would take care of about 80 students. By the way it sounds, I'm rather concerned whether it's enough. Recently, there have been concerns of support given to ID students. We look forward to more support, but social workers do play a very important role. I realize that there are existing standards, but I hope that you can provide more for moderate and severe ID students. A lot of efforts are required to take care of them, so I hope the government can consider that. I'd like to know about transportation as well. Have you considered the needs of parents of ID students and how far they would have to walk? Mr. Wong, Mr. Yang? It's 15 or 20 minutes walk from Yatong Estate. If unless they take taxis, would there be any public transportation modes available? They can take public buses. In Annex 5 of the paper, or Enclosure 5, the red dots denote existing bus stops. There are covered footbridges and at-grade pedestrian crossings. So you can see the access by walk. I recently became a volunteer at a special school for ID students in Yuen Long, and I had a chat with parents, and simply crossing the road might be a challenge for them. And if the drop-off points are very far from the school, then it's a great pain for parents. If you are with your son or daughter, it might be a challenge. So if you are being considerate, then you might have to work with bus companies and the transport department, and you might have to consider more in terms of the drop-off points. If we have no further questions, Mr. Eddie Chu, 4 minutes. Thank you. In terms of energy initiatives, energy saving initiatives and technologies, I'd like to draw some comparison. Has the ArcSD already adopted a set of standards that new government facilities would be equipped with a photovoltaic system, and the heat recovery fresh air preconditioners in the air-conditioned space for heat energy reclaim of exhaust air? Has this become established practice? And in paragraph 24, energy savings and payback period were mentioned. Has this become the norm, like the Cheung Kwan O project? For green design, I think it has become the norm today. Mr. Leung Kun Ki, the speaker is not coming through. Please switch on the microphone. As for green and recycled features, there are technical guidelines within the government issued by the Development Bureau and Environment Bureau. For government projects, they have to follow the requirements of such technical guidelines.
The member also asked about the photovoltaic system and the project we mentioned in the paper. For most of them, we will try to provide such facilities within the project. Chairman, I'm comparing this with the Cheung Kwan O, the contract with the Tung Chung project. For the Cheung Kwan O project, you're spending 1.7 million. For Tung Chung, it's 3.9 million. For the Tung Chung project, apparently the scale appears to be smaller. The building itself is smaller. Why is it that you're spending more money on this one? Mr. Leung, for these projects, very often we will try to do as much as we can for the project, but we are facing certain constraints. We hope that the money on renewable energy and energy saving, facilities should not cost more than 2% of the project. Any follow-up? No. If there are no further questions, I shall put this item to the vote. Will all members who are in favor of this proposal please put up your hands? I see that all members are in favor and there is no objection and no abstention, so the paper is approved and will be forwarded to the FC. Chairman, I'm sorry. Mr. Ji, point of order, I'm not familiar with the rules. You said that this will be forwarded to the FC. Can we can we have this item voted separately? So at the end of our meeting today, I will be consulting with members as to whether or not we want to do this at the FC meeting. Next, we come to the fourth item of the day, which is 70JA, redevelopment of junior police officers' merit quarters at Fan Garden, Fanling. This is paper PWSC 2016-17-42. The paper proposes to upgrade 70 JA to Category A at an estimated cost of $2,827.9 million in money of the day prices for the redevelopment of the Junior Police Officers Merit Quarters at Fan Garden. The government has consulted the securities panel, and members were in support of this proposal at this meeting on the 3rd of January. In attendance for this item, we have Mr. John Lee, Undersecretary for Security, Mr. Andrew Chung, PAS Security, Mr. Dennis Ching, Assistant Secretary of Security, Mr. Raymond Siu, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mrs. Anissa Lee, Chief Superintendent, Ms. Belinda Fong, Superintendent of Police, Mr. Leung Kun Ki, Director of Architectural Services, Mr. David Check, Project Director, ASD, and Mr. Maggie Chen, District Planning Officer. Ms. Tanya Chen. In pair 5, we understand that there is a shortfall of amounting to 20.6% for the disciplinary forces, whether it's the senior or middle-ranking or junior discipline services staff. They are entitled to quarters. Now, I'd like to know about the shortfall situation in respect of the other departments. Well, for this item, originally you have 99 DQ units. Is now going to be increased to close to 1,200. I understand that for transfer arrangements will follow the relevant standards. For this project, have you conducted any traffic impact assessment? Also, in respect of paragraph 10, you've given us the average construction unit cost per square feet, and you say that this unit cost is comparable to that of similar projects built by the government. I'd like to know what benchmark you use to compare the standards. Yes, Mr. Lee Ka-chiu. Thank you. Ms. Chen asked 3 questions. I'll first answer the first 2, and I'll invite the ASD to answer the 3rd question regarding construction cost. Regarding the quarters for staff of the discipline services, we do not provide for 100% provision because of the shortage plan. At the moment, the shortage for different departments, I think for the different discipline services, the shortfall ranges from 10-something% to more than 40%. The difference being that for the different departments, the increase in manpower and the number of merit officers are different. And hence, for some departments, the shortfall is only more than 10%. For other departments, the maximum is more than 40%. For the police, as explained in the paper, the shortfall is about 20%. As far as our policy is concerned, quarters is welfare which we would like to provide as far as it is possible, and I think the court has also agreed to this. We understand we need to find. If there is new land available, we'll consider to build such quarters on certain existing sites, such as the one at Fan Garden. By increasing the plot ratio, we can certainly build more units to reduce the shortfall. Secondly, regarding the EIA, we've actually done that. First of all, we've also done the TIA impact, and we've also assessed the environmental impact. In conducting the environmental impact study, we've also looked at the traffic impact. So the conclusion is that there will not be any major impact in traffic terms. For the environment, again, there won't be any major impact. During the course of the construction, we will come up with measures to mitigate the environmental impact, and this is the details are already explained in the paper. As for the question relating to construction costs, I'll ask the Director of the ASD to answer the question. regarding the construction cost, the benchmark we used was the unit cost. For example, for recent projects we had in Cheung Kwan O, we have a project to build quarters, same for Tin Wan, and in Hang Lam Street, Sun Po Kong. We also have a project to build quarters for staff of the Immigration Department. We actually compare the cost for this project with the unit cost for construction unit cost for those other projects. Mr. Law Tung Chung, Chairman, I think the redevelopment project has been discussed in early January at the housing panel. At that meeting, I asked some questions about the project and also about the project for the new development in Kutong North and Fanning North. Would there be any overlap here? At Kutong North and Fanning North new development area, phase 1 site formation and so on. For that project, you already have, they said that the fan garden quarters will be relocated to Kutong North. But when I read the paper today online, I found that this item has been deleted. I don't know whether or not after we've asked some questions you discovered there were some problems. So on the website, that project has been deleted on your website. At that meeting, the planning officer for Sheung Shui and Fanling said that at Kutong North they already reserved a site to build a new quarters for married police officers. So the response at that meeting was that a site has already been reserved, but when I searched online, it was deleted. So what is the latest situation? Mr. Lee Ka-chiu, thank you. Indeed, it is true that we've already answered that question at the security panel meeting. For the Fanning, quarters, we're going to redevelop in situ. After the redevelopment, this quarters, but Ms. Law was worried that if this building were completed, it will be relocated. And we've already told members and Mr. Law at the last meeting that it would not be relocated. Of course, when new sites are being developed, if some land could be provided to the government so that the government could consider using such resources, the government has a plan. When there is any new development in any area, we would ask for sites to be reserved for the development for a particular department. In the consultant's report, it was suggested that at Kwang Ah Po, we can have a site given to the police department so that some of our facilities could be concentrated there. But that is totally different from our project to build quarters. Thank you. I believe that the police department has been actually set up by the planning department, because when I checked the website, it said these are the remaining projects. Kutong North proposed police station and quarters for married police officers. So it has nothing to Fan Garden. So the ASD thought that the Fanning project will be relocated to Kutong North, and now they are putting it back to the remaining projects. So are you saying that they will be building other quarters for police officers? So I'm rather confused. This is public information. When the public sees such information, they find that the same quarters are proposed to be built at two different locations. Originally, you proposed to a site to relocate the Fanling Garden, quarters to Kutong North, and now that site is going to be used for another purpose. So I think the public is probably confused. So I hope the Bureau and the Planning Department could provide clearer information. And I think the Bureau should have better communication so that we can avoid similar confusion. Thank you. Mr. Law, I think we share the same objective. We would like to provide clear information for the public, and I think that is the right thing that should be done. Mr. Lau Kok Pan, 4 minutes. Thank you. Regarding the Fan Garden project, I'm all in favor. Defending police merit officers' merit quarters have been there for a long time, and the waiting time by police officers for merit quarters is getting longer and longer, and therefore we need to make optimal use of the site. The in situ redevelopment of Fanling quarters is a good suggestion. Regarding the plot ratio, you're going to use the maximum plot ratio of 6 within the district. Whereas the industrial area on Lock Estate is nearby, the plot ratio has been increased. So I'd like to ask whether you can also talk to the department and see whether or not we can further improve the plot ratio to 7, because I think it's suitable for the plot ratio to be increased for that site. Thank you, Mr. Lau. On the subject of plot ratio, our thinking is the same as Mr. Lau. We would like to have the maximum plot ratio so that we can build the maximum number of units. I'll ask the planning department to explain, but normally for the plot ratio, or how large, even if you aim for building the maximum number of units, we have to consider the environmental impact. It's not just a question of how many units we can build. We have to consider the height restriction, the visual impact, the transport import, and so on. So perhaps I'll ask the Commissioner to further explain. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for your comment regarding defending New Town. The maximum plot ratio we allow is 6 times. For public housing, that's the plot ratio for public housing development. For this new project, the plot ratio is already 6 times. The Secretary said that when we develop any site, we have to make optimal use of our land resources. We also hope that the development can be compatible with the development in the vicinity. Looking at the vicinity of the site, we have villages to its east. You'll find some residential developments like Wing Fai Garden. The plot ratio is 5.6. While we want to make optimal use of land resources, we want to strike the right balance. To further increase the plot ratio, then in terms of sewage treatment, transport facilities, there would be pressure. So we therefore believe that the plot ratio of 6 is appropriate. Thank you. Basically, I support the project. I hope that it will be implemented as soon as possible. Dr. Yew Sung Yim, 4 minutes. Thank you. In paragraph 7, we understand that you are proposing to also use the sites which originally were not within the boundary of the Fan Garden site. For the area which is not within the boundary of the quarters. So the question is, how much extra land would you need before you can expand the scale? And there's an opportunity cost for those land you propose to use, and you're not giving us the information in the paper. Could we be provided with such information so that we know how much extra land will be used to build the quarters? Thank you. In enclosure 1, I agree that we've not provided, indicated the additional land we would add to the site, but we are certainly happy to provide the additional information to Dr. Yew. But if you look at enclosure 1, the area surrounded by the red curve or line, on the top right-hand corner you'll find 2 arrows. The area within the boundary of the red line you'll find a curve which will be aligned so that it becomes an angle. Similarly, on the bottom right hand corner, it is angular, but we are, in other words, we are straightening the curve here, and these two portions would only take up 840 square meters. So you see that the whole site, this is only a very small percentage of the total of the entire site. Is there any reason why you need to take up those additional pieces of land? If you don't take up these two additional sites, there won't be any impact as well. Is that right? Well, these two sites are not used by any parties. So in our project design, we thought that straightening the shape of the site would enable us to make more efficient use of the site, because the area concerned is not being used by any parties. So we believe that by straightening the curve, it would actually enable us to make more efficient use of the site. I think it would be best for the ASD to answer the question. If you look at the next curve, there are 5 blocks. The area the additional area you incorporate will only be used for amenity purposes or greening. So the impact is very minimal. Why don't you, for the area which originally did not fall within the boundary of the quarters, you should return it to the public so that it won't affect the scale of the development. And Mr. Lee, I'll ask the ASD to answer the question. Mr. Leung? Thank you. According to the present design, I think the Secretary already said at the area where you find the 2 arrows and in enclosures 1 and 2, the area, we're just straightening the angle at the bottom right-hand corner. The benefit here is that in designing or planning for the quarters, designing the quarters, we can have a better plan. So we are actually incorporating these areas into the site, and hence we will be able to make more optimal use of the site and build more units.
So your ultimate aim really is to increase the GFA after you have expanded the site area. Is that right? Yes. Yes, that's the case. If this small plot of land is left as a public plot, it won't serve any purpose. I think it's better this way under the plan. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, first round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. In the minor government projects, we often see that there are often loose ends being untied. So I think for this vast tracts of greening areas, would the open space be enjoyed by the residents of these blocks? But then, would such open space be made available for enjoyment by the public as well, so that this limited open space can be shared by many more people? So that's number 1. Number 2, and this plan at the right bottom hand corner, and that is next to the police driving and traffic training center, and in between there is a carriageway. Now, what are these buildings? There are some red lines there. Are these blocks being now used by the training center, or is it just carriageway? If it is just carriageways, would you rather not expand the site a little bit more so that you can increase the number of units? to be built. There is now an acute shortage of quarters for the police, and the police officers have a housing problem, and also when they are about to retire, there is also a limited number of public housing units available for them. So there is a lot deadlock. So how can you resolve it? So can you make the better use of the space and build more units so that the disciplined services officers can be adequately housed? So that's very important. So for this white area, can that also be made use of, or is there some other purpose for it already? Mr. Lee. Thank you, Mr. Wu. 2 questions from you. First off, opening up this space for open space for shared use. As we all understand, of course, if more people can get to enjoy a certain plot of land, then that's good. But police quarters are like housing estates. We should provide a safe, private space for residents of the quarters for enjoyment. So we have due regard for the residents' need, and that's our main consideration. Now, with regard to public open space, I think it's really up to the government to decide on that. We have talked to our staff too for the different disciplined services staff. They said that they would like to have a safe environment to live in. So for this site, we will not be having public space which can be open to public enjoyment. Now, Fan Garden, well, it's very much a multi-purpose training center. We have the technical training facilities and also police training, driving and training facilities. I can understand Mr. Wu's good intention, maximizing the use of land to build more flats, but we still have to strike a balance. We have to have regard to the other uses within the police force. Well, you have misunderstood me. I'm sorry. I'm not going that far. We are still keeping the place, but right next to it, between the red line and also the carriageway, there is a white space. What is it now being used for? So can I defer to the police to give you the details? Who? Mr. Seal, the Assistant Commissioner, please. Mr. Seal? Can I defer to Ms. Chiu? Yes. Mrs. Anissa Li Chiu. This plot belongs to the police training, driving and traffic training center. Is for training purpose. I know that. It's just that the carriageway is cutting through the plot. One side that will be used for the staff quarters, and there is this white space in between. So can that be also incorporated into the site as well, so that the quarters can be improved? Well, we have some uses for that plot already. Ms. Tanya Chan, second round, 3 minutes. 2 types of questions, 2 groups of questions. One is parking spaces. In the paragraph 3C, point number 3, there will be 149 car parking spaces and 12 motorcycle parking spaces. Can I also ask this on behalf of Jeremy Tam? Do you have enough motorcycle parking spaces? And also, in the plans, where there is a site plan 2 or the section, typical floor plan or what, I don't see, or section plans, I don't see the locations of the car park. Where are they exactly located? And also, with regard to trees, in paragraph 27, there are 2 trees which are not registered old and valuable trees, but then they're still precious trees, 2 important trees, and they are mature trees. And they reach a height of 14 to 18 meters, and the crowns are very big, so they can do good to the environment. So can they not be transplanted? That would be compensatory planting for quite a number of trees. But for these two important trees, they have a good value and they cannot be readily substituted by other trees. So how come that their chance of survival is that low? All right, 2 questions on car parks and trees. I'll defer to the Director of Architectural Services to take the questions. But first, I must say that we'll try to strive for more car parking spaces and also motorcycle parking spaces. But we do have a Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines to follow. We have tried to come up with the maximum number under that guidelines. Mr. Leung. Thank you. Can I refer members to enclosure 4, the sectional plan? On the right-hand side, there is a block. There are 2 floors. At the bottom, one is very much at the basement, and the other is at the slope. So the 2 floors in yellow are for car parking. I have read through the entire paper before I raised a question, and Mr. Jeremy Tam were wondering whether these are really the 2 floors for car parking spaces, but the legend said that they are the plant room, lifts, staircases, and the common areas. But maybe next time you should have more clear markings. Trees. If trees can be transplanted, we will do so. We will have regard to the conditions of the trees in considering that, and whether they would stand in the way of the development project. Now, the member referred to the 2 important trees. In enclosure 5, we made a good explanation and explained why these 2 trees have to be felled. Mr. Jonathan Ho, first round, 4 minutes. I'm also concerned about the car parking spaces. At the District Council, we are concerned about that. That will have an impact on the neighborhood. In Kwun Tong, there are the Discipline Services quarters. They have 400 units. They have 40 car parking spaces and 5 motor car parking spaces. We now have over 1,000 DQ units, and you are talking about 150 car parking spaces and 12 motor cycle parking spaces. The Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines set the minimum standards only. The police officers are on shift, and they may have to work in areas not accessible by public transport. For example, police stations in the remote areas. It takes a 20 minutes walk to go from Fan Garden to the MTR station. So can I ask the RHSD to consider this based on the needs of those residents in the quarters? Maybe you can increase the number of car parking spaces. I don't want the police officers to rent parking spaces in private car parks nearby. We are having a new development project, so we have the conditions to do it. I have raised the same point at the panel meeting. We have to bear in mind the unique life pattern of the residents, especially for motorcycles and car parking spaces. Maybe you can increase in number. Can you expand the size of the basement to build in more parking spaces for use by the public police officers? Mr. Lee. Mr. O, thank you for your comments. He asked that the ASD should consider it. Actually, we are working together with the ASD to get more car parking spaces, but we are governed by the HKPSG, which is a standard which applies to all parts of Hong Kong. So can I ask the Ms. Chin, the District Planning Officer, to elaborate on the guidelines? Ms. Chin? Miss Maggie Chin, please. Please switch on the mic for Miss Chin. Yes, does it work now? Yes. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for your question. On transport support facilities, for development projects, you have to follow the Hong Kong planning and standards and guidelines, and one of it has to do with the transport support facilities. And that's on parking spaces. And the Transport Department is reviewing from time to time such guidelines. And we issue guidelines to different development projects. And as mentioned by the Undersecretary, under the guidelines there are certain limitations. For example, for residential development, a certain ratio is designated for certain car park spaces based on the units. And for this fan garden development, we have adopted the maximum level of car parking spaces allowed, and that has been endorsed by the TD and also the intellectual or the GPA. If we are to provide more car park spaces, that would be a deviation from the guidelines. We have to look at, again, the fan garden. The location is quite near. The MTR station is in the town center, Fanling, and there are many public transport facilities in the neighborhood. So we think this number is appropriate. Mr. Jeremy Tam, first round, 4 minutes. Thank you. I have a question for Ms. Chin. I beg to differ from what she said. Motorcycle parking spaces are in acute shortage in many places in Hong Kong. Do you know how many motorcycles are running on the roads in Hong Kong, and how many parking spaces are there altogether? Do you know? Ms. Chin, do you have the information? I don't have the information. Well, let me tell you then. As of the June of last year, there are some 47,000 motorcycles licensed. Parking spaces, including metered parking spaces and also link and public and private parking spaces, 31,000 only. So, in other words, 1 out of 4 motorcycles has nowhere to be parked. Now, you have 1,000 units and you have only 12 parking spaces for motorcycles. You emphasize that you have the guidelines. Well, it's precisely there are problems with the guidelines, and that's why you're coming with this figure. You said that there are public transport facilities. Can you imagine how they can take public transport in the evening? They are on the 24-hour shift. Have you visited any police stations? How many police officers are parking their motorcycles there? Have you visited these police stations? I fully appreciate the members' concern with regard to the HKPSG's transport guideline. The TD is reviewing the guidelines all the time, and in 2014, in relation to car parking spaces and motorcycles parking spaces, a review was done. And based on the TD's professional advice, the latest standards were drawn up. In any case, I will reflect the members' comment to the TD and see whether it's time again for them to update the standards. Of course, there is a need to review the guidelines, but now you are coming to us to apply for the funding for building 12 spaces only. Well, say, for example, Tung Chung police station. How many police officers are working there? And do you know how many police officers are parking their own motorcycles there? Do you know? Ms. Chin, I am asking the police. Parking spaces, you said that you are adopting the maximum level allowed. Is it the same for the motorcycle parking spaces? Yes, that's the same. I'm asking the police, did you do a survey, a study on how many police officers are using motorcycles? That's a very simple thing to do. Well, earlier I visited Kwun Tong police station, at least I spotted at least 30 motorcycles being parked there. So you see that the ratio is very high, considering the number of police officers working there. I'm sure you can come up with a figure on how many people or the residents in that quarters will be using motorcycles. Mr. Lee, the demand. Mr. Tam, I really appreciate your great concern for police officers' needs for transport facilities and services. The police haven't done a study on how many police officers need to use motorcycles. But then I hope that you understand that the standards were not drawn up by Ms. Chin, the planning officer. They were drawn up by the TD. When they did that, they took on board a number of factors, including their overall transport policy. So what we can do now is to relay Mr. Tam's comments to the TD and the THB, so that when they come up with the overall guidelines, your point will be taken on board. But that applies not only to staff quarters, but also for all development properties or property development projects in Hong Kong. We will reflect your views to the THB and TD. Mr. Wilson, or first round, 4 minutes. DAB supports this paper. We see that the average waiting time for staff quarters is 4 years among the disciplined services staff. This is a very serious problem, so I have to say this upfront first. I hope that the Bureau and Department can consider this seriously. The frontline officers have been telling us, or even the neighboring residents in the around the staff quarters have reflected the same problem about parking spaces. If we don't deal with the problem properly, I'm afraid that after the project has been completed, we're still facing the same problem.
On this project, if we are unable to pass it today, by what extent would construction costs go up in the future? The public has been monitoring the government's spendings closely, so I hope the government can offer an answer. I'd like to take this chance, even though we have no one from the Transport and Housing Bureau here today. I hope you can relay the message that the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines must be reviewed as soon as possible. And there's a lack of parking space for the public, so I'd like to know more about the construction costs. Chairman, let me address the question of Mr. Orr first. We will certainly relay your views to the THB, including the views of both Mr. Tam and Mr. Orr. I thank you for your views. Because we certainly hope that these issues can be revisited. Director of Architectural Services, Mr. Leung. Thank you. Our prices are based on prices in September 2016, and in paragraph 11 of the paper, we have explained that the cash flows would be disseminated over a number of years, and there would be an adjustment, a price adjustment factor that comes into play. If we expect the project to begin in the second half of this year, and if there's any delay in the start time, then these prices would go up accordingly. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, second round, 3 minutes. Thank you. With regards to the parking spaces under HKPSG, Ms. Chin said that those figures are caps or maximums. For private residential developments, the baseline is 1 to 5 or 1 to 8. 1 to 5 is the maximum and 1 to 8 is the minimum. For the 1,000 odd new DQ places, then why are we adopting the ratio of 1 to 8? As for motorcycle parking spaces, there are no planning standards and guidelines as far as I know. If there are, what are the standards? Is it 1 to 100? At Wong Tai Sin and Kowloon East, we have a lot of departmental quarters for discipline forces, but due to parking shortages, a lot of staff members have to park their motorcycles on the streets, and it led to a lot of unnecessary conflicts with the public. If there are a lot of vehicles, police vehicles or motorcycles on the streets, and the public might not be happy. That's why we have to provide enough parking spaces so that you won't give them any reasons to park their vehicles or motorcycles on the streets. So I hope the government can look at that. Can you tell us you have already reached the maximum under HKPSG, or are you just barely meeting the minimums? Ms. Chin? As for the standards of parking spaces, in 2014, we updated Chapter 8, Paragraph 7 of the HKPSG on the provision of parking spaces. We have to consider a few factors. First of all, the universal standards point out that for every 6 to 9 units, we will provide 1 parking space. So this time, we have adopted the ratio of 6 to 1 instead of 9 to 1. Apart from the number of units, the Transport Department also requested to introduce an adjustment ratio based on the size of the unit, distance with the railway station, development density, etc. We can offer details later on the relevant chapter under HKPSG. So please provide details after the meeting. Mr. Lam Shak Ting, 4 minutes. Chairman, the Democratic Party supports this plan. I had lived in a departmental quarter of the discipline forces before, and I think these quarters are very important to the morale of discipline forces. It's a form of commitment from the government to the discipline forces. Unfortunately, the current shortage is still very serious, so I hope that the Security Bureau and other government departments can identify more sites for discipline forces, including the police force, for quarters. This would ensure morale and stability of the discipline forces. And the property prices have hiked, and during these times, the demand for DQs would be especially high, and property prices are sky high at the moment. A lot of discipline services staff, and even if they make $30,000 to $40,000 a month, they cannot afford the housing. Rents are also very expensive for them. So in order to provide an incentive, we should give them a home. I'm not sure if the Undersecretary or Police Force can address this question. Do you distribute the quarters once a quarter? And if so, can you do it more regularly? When I was with the ICAC, quarters would be distributed every quarter, but if you can speed up the process, you can speed up the turnaround of staff quarter places so that more police officers can enjoy these quarters. Thank you very much. We agree that units should be made available as soon as possible. And can Mrs. Siu talk to us about the police's practice? Mr. Raymond Siu, thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Lam for his support. As for the distribution of departmental quarter places for we will have 5 for JP grade. We will have 5 distribution exercises a year, and for supervisory grades we have 4 exercises per year. We would constantly monitor the DQs for vacancies, and the relevant units would be distributed as soon as possible. When I was with the ICAC, the distribution exercise only took place once a quarter. If someone just moved out, then the units would be left vacant for a few months. Would you consider speeding up the entire workflow so that the places could be given to needy officers as soon as possible? This is certainly feasible. Housing resources are really valuable these days. Thank you very much. We would look into that. Are you going to give us a response? For officers who are waiting, would they receive vacant units, or would they be only allocated a flat in the next quarter? As I said, for JP grade officers, we have 5 distribution exercises per year. When certain officers move out, the vacant flats would be given to waiting officers as soon as possible. This is done 5 times a year. And after flats are vacated, some time might be needed to for repairs, etc. Mr. Edward Lau, 3 minutes. Members are very concerned about motorcycle parking spaces. In fact, more and more people operate motorcycles, and there's a serious lack of parking spaces. Within the ambit of redevelopment, it's relatively easy to set aside space for motorcycles. Can the government allocate part of the space for motorcycle parking? Some members asked about the police driving and traffic training center. It might be useful, but the space across the road might be used for motorcycle parking. I think the number of spaces now is inadequate, and the ratio is also inadequate. The training center might be relocated later. Are there plans to better deploy that site for Fan Garden? And this site is located in Fan Garden. For the site can be incorporated in future expansions of Fan Garden. Thank you. For the motorcycle parking spaces, as for the availability of land and how many places can be accommodated, these are 2 issues. Some spaces are certainly available, but they might be public space. But when we plan the number of motorcycle parking spaces, we are binded by the Hong Kong Planning Standards guidelines. This is not within the ambit of the Security Bureau, and it's not about whether there is enough land, and they have to consider the transport and environmental impacts. I realize that a number of members have raised such views, and when establishing these guidelines, we would take these into account. We would relay these to the THB and Transport Department. As for sites outside of Fan Garden, the police has deployed them as training purposes for tactical training, driving training, etc. And the other spaces shown on the plan are not unused because they are used for other purposes. And there are other buildings in the area as well. As for whether the tactical training facilities will be relocated later and whether the vacated space would be used to build department quarters, that's another issue from the Security Bureau's point of view. We find it appropriate that the land be deployed by the existing users, but we understand that the government has overall planning considerations for the sites. By the time this site is eventually relocated or vacated, then we would think about it. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. I support this proposal. But as for the car parking or motorcycle parking spaces, I do not like the planning department's response. When police officers drive their motorcycles to work, would they be given certain labels? Mr. Lee, for private motorcycles, they are used for private purposes. If they are to be parked in police stations, then they must be authorized, and there might be a cap on the number of vehicles, because priority would be given to operation-related vehicles, and for other vehicles, priorities must be established. The actual space available would be different for different police stations. Can you give us this statistic? How many officers drive to work by car, motorcycles? If you give them if you issue parking permits, then you can gather the number of vehicles very easily. And you only have 12 parking spaces for motorcycles, which is far inadequate. So you either, if you are the officer, then you either decide not to drive or somehow accommodate your motorcycle elsewhere. So from a practical point of view, how many police officers actually drive their cars or motorcycles to work? If you can give us this statistic, then you can convince us more easily next time. I appreciate Mr. Tam's perspective. I think we should look at the big picture. Mr. Tam said there are 47,000 motorcycles, but with only 31,000 parking spaces. This is a question about the overall supply of motorcycles. Police officers are also Hong Kong residents, so if there's an overall lack in parking spaces, this is a planning problem. for police officers, whether they live in quarters or private properties, if the supply is limited, then they have to make a choice. I once gave up driving due to a lack of parking lots, and also I even gave my car to a relative. I appreciate Mr. Tam's consideration, but I do think that this is not just about the departmental quarters. We will relay this to the THB and TD. Mr. Lam Cheuk Ting, 3 minutes. Chairman, I want to follow up on the allocation of DQs. The Assistant Commissioner said that repairs have to be made, and well, I knew that they are very quick, and usually the quarters are in very good condition, and the tenants would seldom mess up the place. You only need to patch up the tiles or do some repainting or simple replacements. There's no reason why 3 months would be needed. If it's a private property, if it's only allocated after 3 months, it's ridiculous. And it takes 3 months alone to allocate a flat to an officer. And the officer might make additional requests after being allocated. So at the end, they might only move in after 4 or 5 months. This is way too long. For me, a reasonable time frame would be 2 months. It should be done every 2 months, at least. For the JP grade, you have 5 allocation exercises a year, and for supervisory staff, 4 times a year. Can the Director of Architectural Services speed up the repair works? For a vacated flat, you can issue a notice, and since you already have a marking scheme, then you can decide which officers can get the flats, and then you can start working on the repairs. Why would it take so long? So this is a suggestion from myself. So please think about it. It's about whether you want to do it. If it's your own property, you would be able to rent it out within a year. So the problem lies with the government.
I think that is already beyond the scope of the topic already. But Mr. Siu, do you have anything to add? Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Lam for his question. Perhaps I can provide members with some statistics. As I said, for the JP grade officers, there will be 5 allocation exercises for DQ every year. In 2016, the first allocation was held on the 15th of January 2016. Chairman, I don't need, that. I was asking whether or not they could do it more frequently, technically whether it is possible. The ASD is here. I don't see how it can't be done. There's no point to tell us, the time when you had the allocation. Well, I was mainly trying to tell Mr. Lam that the DQ allocation exercise is held once every 5 years. Each exercise it will be done once every 2 months, roughly. Whenever we have any vacant units, we will immediately, put up the announcement within 1 or 2 weeks and invite colleagues to apply. Tanya Chen, your third round, 2 minutes. Chairman, I'd like to also go back to the question regarding the 2 trees. I've read all the papers. I understand why the survival rate for the tree is not very high. Is it because of the species of the tree? Of course, you have 2 large trees there, and the roots of the trees would get in the way when you do your piling. Is it the case that you cannot really relocate the tree, or is it that in Fanling or other areas there's no room or space to accommodate that tree? I understand that one of the trees is not very healthy, whereas for the other one it's not really a major problem. It's healthy and it's also bigger. So I'd like to know whether or not it's because of this particular species that is not suitable for relocation. Relocating a tree is like, having two operations on a tree to pull it out and then to plant it in a separate location. Well, you have specialist grade staff who have already assessed those trees. I just don't want the trees to have to give way every time you have a development project, because some trees are really precious species which we should cherish. So I'd like to ask how you assess those trees. I'd like you to give me an answer regarding the survival chance of those trees. But in the paper, we've also explained the condition of those two trees. And in the footnote, we have said that after replanting, we estimate that they will have a very low chance of, survival. And that is the assessment of our landscape architects. Even after the two trees are relocated, they don't have a very good chance of, surviving. Chairman, I'll be seeking other professional advice on that later on. Mr. Uchiwai? 2 minutes. Let's follow on the PSG. The planning officer told us about the ceiling. The ceiling divided by 1,100 something. There should be 180 car parks instead of 149. Secondly, I still don't have the answer regarding motorcycle parking spaces. I understand there is no standard, no planning standards. So, based on what standard did you decide on the number of motorcycle car parks to be provided within the quarters? Thank you. Regarding the planning standards and guidelines, I think the Transit Department has conducted a review and then they came to a decision for parking spaces for private cars. For every 6 to 9 units, there should be one car park. We've adopted the lowest threshold, that is one car park for 6 units. Furthermore, we also need to have an adjusted ratio. If the size of the unit is between 40 to 70 square meters, we would multiply that by a factor of 0.7. If it's near a train station, we would and also taking into view the development density of 0.9, multiply all that together for 1,184 divide by 6 plus 0.7 times 9, we end up with 124 car parks. Perhaps after the meeting I can provide the full details of the standard for members. For motorcycles, in 2017 this PSC has been upgraded, and the criteria for motorcycle is that for 100 to 150 units there will be one car park. So right now for the redevelopment proposal, 1,184 units, the maximum car park provision will be 12. Mr. Law Tung Chung, your second round, 3 minutes. Thank you. The Audit Commission recently published a report regarding the management of these departmental quarters. Very often they are under the responsibility of the government property agent. The report of the Audit Commission pointed out the problems concerning the management of the departmental quarters. The Audit Commission recommended that these vacant units should be, made available for redevelopment or to be occupied by other officers, so that they won't be left vacant. So they pointed out that there are many vacant premises which have not been used optimally. Has the situation now improved? Because that report was published last year. The government planning property agent was under the GPA. So I'd like to know how many vacant units are there at the moment. Could they be made available more quickly? Because many police officers are still not able to, be allocated with such units. regarding the report of the Audit Commission. I think that is outside the ambit of the Security Bureau. I don't know whether or not our colleagues from the Finance and Treasury Bureau could respond to the question. Mr. Lau? Thank you, Mr. Law. Regarding the following up on the recommendations of the Audit Commission's report, we can certainly provide the information for members later. In respect of the recommendations of that Audit Commission report, we will be submitting periodic reports to LegCo about how we follow up on those recommendations. Chairman, I asked the question because you are providing 8 F units and 1000G grade units. I think the shortfall it's actually the most serious for X grade officers, and the waiting time is 4 years. So for the quarters for senior civil servants, which are now leased to the market, could you provide these units for the police officers? The 1,000 or so units, can they fully satisfy the current demand? I think that is a very broad question, which is, but perhaps Mr. Lee can supplement. Perhaps I can defer this question to the relevant bureaus for follow-up. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. Thank you. I'd just like to make some comment which the Planning Department can go back and liaise with the department's concerned about the question of car parks for motorcycles. In the past, I've helped 2 car parks to apply for more provision of car parks for motorcycles from the Planning Department. Originally, they have satisfied your planning standard guidelines, and there was a long queue waiting for motor car, parking spaces. So I helped the owners to apply for the provision of more car parks for motorcycles. I think you need to have a review. And it's not reasonable that after you've built the quarters, you would require the residents or the officers to apply for a waiver from the Lands Department to get extra car parks. If there is already, you realize that there is already such a need. Is there a mechanism to actually, go beyond the present, guidelines and standards? Is there any conditions for people to obtain a waiver? And after the development is completed, is there a mechanism for someone to apply for the provision of more motorcycle car parks on condition that it will not cause any obstruction or violate the fire services regulations? It's not reasonable that after the development is completed, you will require people to apply for a waiver. So at the moment, is it possible that you can provide for some exceptions so that more car parks for motorcycles could be provided? Ms. Chin, you really explained to us that you already, allowing the maximum already. Regarding the provision of motorcycle car parks, we must obtain permission from the TD and the Planning Department. As the Secretary said, we will certainly relay members' concern to the THB and the TD. I suggest that regarding the planning standards for car park provisions, members can follow up on that at the relevant panel meetings, because at the PWSC meeting, we really cannot, deal with this issue. I'm sure members are very concerned that the provision of car parks for motorcycle is short in supply, and we've heard about the extent of the shortfall. But for this project, on the other hand, we have to, we are bound by the planning standards and guidelines. So if members have any comments regarding the guidelines and standards, you can follow up at the relevant panel meeting. Mr. Lam. I'm going to say this to the Secretary, not the Assistant Director. Could you ask the Police Department and the ASD to expedite the allocation exercise? You can certainly have 6 allocation exercises once every six times every year. for both JP grade and inspectorate officers. I'm actually doing this for the benefit of your frontline officers. I'm asking you to go back and think about it, and you still refuse and you're telling us instead that you've already done a good job. If you ask the property developer that they will have to wait for 3 months before they can lease a unit to the market, isn't that unreasonable? I'm coming up with a very good suggestion, and they're telling us that they're already doing quite well. So would you consider my suggestion? Go back. So a specific proposal that you have 6 allocation exercises every year. We certainly go back and see whether we can, shorten the allocation cycle. I hope, you will consider that suggestion. 6 rounds every year. If there are no further questions, we'll put this item to the vote. All those in favor? All in favor? No objection, no abstention. Next, we move on to the next item. This is item 5. We will invite the officials to join us for this item. Item 5, 63 TR, Sha Tin to Central Link, construction of railway works, advanced works. This is PWSC 2016-17-43. The paper proposes to increase the approved project estimate of 63 TR by $847.7 million from $6,254.9 million to $7,102.6 million in money of the day prices. On the 9th of December 2016, the government consulted the transport panel on this project. The majority of members present supported the government's proposal to submit this proposal to the PWSC. The report of the transport panel is already tabled for members. Present today for this item, we have Mr. Yao Xing Mo, Undersecretary of Transport and Housing, Ms. Rebecca Poon, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Raymond Cheng, PAS for Transport and Housing, Mr. Daniel Chung, Director of Highways, Mr. Jimmy Chen, PAS Highways, Mr. Frankie Chow, Chief Engineer Highways, Dr. Phil Ko Wong, Project Director MTRC, Mr. Ken Wong, General Manager MTRC, Mr. Stephen Yao, Manager, and Ms. Prudence Chen, Senior Manager, MTRC. The first member to ask question is Claudia Mo. 4 minutes. Are they going to brief us on the content, the details of the project? Well, that project was deliberated by the Railway Subcommittee already. Unless there is a demand, otherwise we can do away with the briefing. I'd like to ask about the Sha Tin Central Link project. I think there is now cost overrun, and you are now asking for additional provision. So my first question may be one which you will find very difficult to answer. Would this be the last time you'll be asking for additional provision? And also for the entire SCL project. We've been discussing this from September last year, and the total estimate already reached 100 million. Mr. Yao. Yes. To answer Ms. Mo's question, for our application for additional provision, it's not about the major Sha Tin Central Link project, but rather this is the funding for the railway station, including the Ho Man Tin station, the Admiralty station, and the additional expenses for those projects. Chairman, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt here. Of course, I understand that additional expenditures are required for these projects for in such stations. And of course the project will have to go ahead, and I will not object to that. I will not object to your application for additional funding too. But I'm telling you about a tree. Never mind, you're saying that we should focus on a tree and never mind the forest. That's not acceptable. I want to look at the big picture. Can you tell me what is the total estimate for the whole SEL project, and that it has already exceeded 100 billion? I haven't quite finished yet. What I was going to say that we are now applying for funding for the advanced works for those two stations. And the amount we are seeking is capped at this amount. So as for these two stations, this will be the last time we'll be applying for additional provision. As for the major project, at the Railway Subcommittee, we've already explained that the MTRC will, in the second half of this year, give us an accurate estimate as to how much additional expenditure would be required, and the government will then, based on their estimate, verify such estimate. And after that, we will come back to this council to give an account to members. If we need additional funding, we will certainly apply to this committee. Well, Chairman, I do not accept that explanation. You say this time you only come to us once for additional funding for these two stations. I'm worried that next time you'll apply for funding for another two stations or two other systems, or other additional expenses relating to further works. So you may come again and yet again. So there should be an overall picture. You shouldn't just come and say, we're only here to talk to you about two stations, and do not digress into other areas and talk about the entire project. That is not fair, and it's irresponsible on his part, Chairman. Mr. Yao, we've singled out these two stations because when we apply for funding, we're talking about Project 63TR. We actually apply funding in respect of 63TR. The overall project for the SEL is 61TR, and the estimate for that is not yet confirmed. Therefore, at this stage, we would not be able to give you a figure for that particular project.
But once the figure is ready, on 61TR, or including the costs for the railways and the station, if there is an additional funding required, for example, additional funds may be required for our archaeological work, then we will come back to you. I think this fragmented approach of discussion is totally undesirable. Mr. Edward, you, first round, 4 minutes. With regard to the excavation works for the expansion of Admiralty Station, I would like to seek more information. Well, the information here is very astonishing to me. You are going to build a 6-story structure, and it is said that during the works, it is found that there are the actual properties of the rocks is different from the geological information obtained by ground investigations. The spacing was 1 meter, which was twice as the estimated half-meter spacing. I'm most concerned about safety. Every day, there is heavy patronage of the Admiralty Station. If there is such great discrepancy, then I'm very concerned about safety. So can the government department respond on that point? With regard to delays in cost overrun, would you have the latest information to share with us? Who to take that question? Mr. Yao. For the Admiralty Station, the works related to SCLEL are coming to an end. There is still a small portion of work yet to be finished. Can I ask the MTRCL to elaborate? And also the MTRCL can talk about the safety issues, and how come that there is a discrepancy on the geological condition between the actual situation and what they envisaged in the beginning. Thank you, Dr. Yim, for your question. For the expansion of Admiralty Station, safety is our topmost priority and consideration. Ground conditions. Hong Kong's ground conditions are relatively complex, and before the works we did a lot of investigation works. But after we did the investigation work, we found that the spacing between the natural joints has increased than expected. So that adds difficulties to our excavation work. We have to do excavation under the existing Hong Kong Island Line. The first consideration we have is the existing services will not be affected. And during the works stage, we cannot expedite the works because we have to do the underpinning works step by step. So as a result, the schedule has been delayed. As what the Undersecretary said, the SILE's line has been commissioned at the end of last year. We've overcome a lot of difficulties, and there has been a cost increase as well. You mean that the excavation works have already been completed, right? So would you be able to say exactly how much are the claims and the actual delay of the works? Mr. Wong. Well, we do have the specific information because the works have been completed. So these are the actual figures needed. Would you provide the information after the meeting? You mean the contractor's claims amounts? We can provide the information after the meeting. But for the increase in cost to this time is the actual cost, right? Yes. So that's why the Undersecretary said that they will not come for additional funding again for these works in the future. Mr. Nathan Law. Thank you, Chairman. We're talking about additional funding of $800 million, and that's no small sum. There are some unforeseen circumstances. You have to convince the public why these unforeseen circumstances cannot be anticipated when you did your investigation works in the beginning. You said that you are making some savings, including adjusting the on-cost payable to MTRCL. I'd like to seek more information. Well, it was $700 million adjusting by cutting it down to $400 million, saving $200 million. Can the same sort of formula apply to other projects? In other words, there is over-provision in such on-cost payable to MTRCL in other projects as well. Can I defer to the Director, Mr. Chung? Thank you. For the SCL, we are talking about the advanced works now, and we are seeking additional funding. At the early stage of the SCL works, we agreed with the MTRCL on a ratio of the management cost, 16.5%. After the detailed design works have been done, we again talked to the MTRCL, and based on the scale of the project, the complexity of the project, we agreed, after discussions, on a lower ratio. And this ratio covers the entire SCL project. So we originally provided for a percentage of 16.5%, and that has been cut. So as a result, there is a decrease in the cost. Of course, that's good that we can save up some money. I hope that we can do more savings in the future projects. I have some questions on the engineering works. The government said that there will be a redeveloping the Wan Chai Sports Ground, and there will be exhibition convention facilities to be built, and there will be foundation and piling works to be done. Now, if I look at the alignment, the Wan Chai Sports Ground site may overlap with some underground portions of the SCLL. If piling works have to be done at the Wan Chai Sports Ground and there will be high rises to be built, will that have an impact on the SCL works? Will additional funding, some proposals be submitted again? Is this something that we can envisage to be happening, and then we can deal with it here up front? Mr. Yao, we have already started works on the SCL. And for any new projects to be undertaken in its vicinity, the proponents have to consider the impact on the SCL works and whether there will be additional protective measures to be put in place. Can I defer to the Director of Highways? I don't think there should be any impact on the works in principle. Mr. Chung, the alignment of SCL will go through the sports ground. Concerning the detailed works, how will we deal with the foundations and so on, can I ask the MTRCL representative to supplement? Dr. Wong, Philco Wong. The alignment is in the tunnel. It passes under the sports ground. The tunnel has already been built. In the future, if there are going to be superstructures, buildings on top, the developers have to make sure that it would not sort of conflict or have any impact on the tunnel. What do you mean by they have to tie in sort of with the tunnel location? Say if a high-rise convention building has to be built, how high can it get? So that it will not affect the tunnel. Well, you've gone over time. Can we have a simple answer from Dr. Wong? In terms of works, the location of the foundations can be adjusted to tie in with the location of the tunnel. Mr. Eddie Ju, first round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I have the first question is on paragraph 19, which is on the Homentin Station. The MTRC adopted the conventional open blasting method for excavation of rock hill, and as the works go on, they think that they need to put in additional protective measures, and there has been a serious delay as a result. As a result, there will be a cost increase of $175.3 million. So obviously, a mistake was made in in this decision earlier. So going forward, MTRCL, how would you prevent similar mistakes in the future when it comes to choosing the right construction method? At Homentin Hill is a rock hill. It is at a location where the the Homentin station will be built. At the design stage, we did investigation works on the ground. We did that in accordance with the government's relevant guidelines. We could work on certain locations, ascertain their depth, etc. But it's bound to be discrepancy between the investigation results and the actual conditions. This happens in a number of other projects as well. The results of the ground investigation will be stored in our database. So in the future, when the ground investigation works are done, then we have better information to rely on, and we would be in better grasp of the risks of the project. The database was it did it hold information on the current project, or would it help in other projects when it comes to the blasting work? Dr. Wong's answer is that, well, to me, that such information or experience will serve as a reference for future projects. While all the information will be collected and it will be accumulated in the database so that it can be used by future works projects. So the more comprehensive information can be obtained in the future when it comes to the ground investigation. For Ho Man Tin Station, well, looking back, do you mean that nobody has made any mistake and nobody should be held responsible? Dr. Wong, for this project, the engineers, based on the relevant requirements and also the guidelines, did what they needed to do. Concerning the ground investigation works, as I said, Hong Kong's geological conditions are rather complex, and it's quite impossible to fully understand the conditions underground. So my question is simple. MTRCL thinks that nobody has done anything wrong. The engineers are doing things by trial and error, and as a result, there has been a cost overrun of over $100 million. Well, in other words, if you have anticipated that the ground conditions are to be like those, you would already have increased your provision, right, in the beginning. Well, the conditions remain the same here, and it's difficult to know exactly 100% what is underground when we did the investigation work. So we have to do more blasting, hence increase in the cost. Ms. Claudia Mo, second round, 3 minutes. I think it's staggering. What you said is staggering. You said that you keep on saying that Hong Kong's ground conditions are complex, and once in the XRL project at the West Kowloon site, you said you suddenly found that there were a lot of piles found underground and you have to remove them one by one. Didn't you know that beforehand? And also at the Kowloon West terminus, you said that there was a granite and you didn't expect then. And also Sha Tin Central Link, there were archaeological artifacts which were unknown previously. So you said that you go by trial and error. And for every delay, every mistake you made, you have to come back to seek additional funding to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. This is very scary. You said you would do a job better next time. That's not convincing. You know that Hong Kong's geological conditions are very complex. Can you not undertake here that you would do the most accurate job in the future and there would not be any mistakes in the future? Yes, Mr. Dr. Wong? Before we commenced works on any project, we would do ground investigation work. Hong Kong has a lot of buildings. The roads are very busy, so we face constraints. So we go by the relevant guidelines, and we do at ground investigations at certain intervals of the site, and that will serve as a basis for our design. Now, Hong Kong's geological conditions are rather complex. There has been a lot of erosion of the rocks, but then the erosion extent varies. So even if we do in ground investigation works, we would not be able to know exactly the erosion situation of the rocks of the entire site. So we face difficulties in blasting, tunneling works, excavation works, we face a lot of challenges. Well, I understand all these, Chairman, but how do you explain or the case that when you were building the XRL way back, then there were so many piles underground. You didn't know that from papers or literature, and nobody had to be responsible for that kind of wrongdoing, right? Dr. Wong. Well, we know about some of the piles, but then they face difficulties when they do excavation because the pile situation was different from what was envisaged. Mr. Raymond Chan, well, you blame others for your mistakes all the time. Now, this time round is the ground conditions, paragraph 6. You said that you go by the geo guide compiled by the GEO to carry out the ground investigation and set the number of drill holes as recommended by the guide. And then in paragraph 9, you said that although MTRCL followed the geo guide compiled by the GEO to carry out the ground investigation and set the number of drill holes as recommended by the guideline, now you are blaming the geo guide for the mistakes. Does it mean that there is a problem with the geo guide? Who should take the responsibility? Should it be the MTRCL or the government departments monitoring the MTRCL or the GEO issuing the geo guide? This problem doesn't surface only this time. In many previous projects, we were told that there are some problems in the ground investigation works, and as a result, there are problems. So is it the case that the geo guide doesn't serve as a good enough reference and mistakes were committed as a result? Mr. Chung, on the geo guide, in the last meeting of the subcommittee on railway, well, that was also raised by members. We have already relayed your views to the CEDD, and they have this comment. They said that this is geo guide serves as a reference for the works personnel, and at this stage, they don't think there is a need to revise the geo guide. Thank you.
Chairman, the government said the guide has been followed, so it's not our fault, and the fault lies with the ground or ground conditions. And after that, you would come back for more funds. You said the geo guide is only for reference, so you cannot blame the guide. It doesn't say you have to follow whatever it says, so this is really confusing. So you shouldn't say that you followed the geo guide. This is not a reason. There's no fail-safe guide. An accident is an accident. Why don't you give this reason? Anything to add? Director? The geo guide is for reference by engineers. It also lists out best practices. As Mr. Wong from the MTR Corporation said, Hong Kong's ground conditions vary greatly. So even if the practices of the guide have been followed, you cannot be 100% sure that the ground conditions can be accurately understood. We are not asking them to grasp the land or ground conditions completely, but our point is whether you should update the geo guide, and you are saying that you have no plans because it's just for reference. So I do not understand the logic. I think a balance must be struck. If the geo guide request some deeper investigations, and the cost might go up. So a balance must be struck. Dr. Edward Yu, 3 minutes. Members asked about two main aspects. And first, preventing repeats of such cost overruns in the future. And two, in the increased allocation, would we have to think about responsibilities? In paragraph 17, you said that at Admiralty Station, some works have already been tendered out before discussing the excavation at the main tunnel structure of the island line. And you considered the advice of the Buildings Department and the GEO. Additional stabilization works and temporary propping works must be imposed, and the cost overrun is more than 200 million. So there were evidence that the design of the underpinning works of the main tunnel structure were not approved by the Buildings Department, and after the tendering or tenders were granted, you reviewed the design, which led to a cost overrun. So we should learn from this lesson. So in the future, you should work out the details more carefully before opening up the tendering, instead of asking experts to modify the design after tenders are granted. So can you learn from this to avoid cost overruns in the future? Mr. Yao from the MTR Corporation. Dr. Phil Ko Wong. Thank you. I understand Dr. Yu's question. During a tendering exercise, the tender document serves to illustrate the scope of work and risks associated clearly to contractors. In each tender document, we have to strike a balance. If we include a lot of risks on the tender document, contractors would submit higher bids. And some risks are not entirely foreseeable. We are not talking about underground conditions. This is about a change in design. You consulted a few experts and decided that additional stabilization works are needed. This is about the design rather than uncertainty in ground conditions. Yes, I understand that. The design is modified based on changes in the actual environment. That's why the relevant government departments would offer their views. And the design had to be modified to achieve building or construction safety. Mr. Leung Kok Hong, 4 minutes. Chairman, when I was small, and we learned that we need to learn the right concepts and the actual operation. And this is the problem with works in Hong Kong. And there are politically, there are appointed officials, and there are people who actually do the work. We have excavations, and we are expanding the railway network, including the XRL. And two things would happen. There would be very urgent orders, and there would be a problem with the manpower chain or talent chain. We do not have enough professionals to supervise the works. These are very basic errors. You made errors in geological investigations for Lian Tang. There are problems. They didn't know that the soil is so soft, and then additional reinforcements are needed. And they also found rocks unexpectedly. if it's so hard to attract tenders, you said that contractors would charge more. This is for sure. You are not disclosing the uncertainties, and when they actually conduct the works, then there would be quarrels or arguments. For the GEO and Buildings Department, these professional civil servants have to be held accountable. They must take care of safety. Let me say this once more. There are strict orders, and having read Premier Lee's working report, I now learned something. And we have to deal with the excess capacity, and there is overstocking as well. And now we are stuck. Your people cannot monitor everything, and you are shifting the blame to the MTR Corporation. And look at Frederick Ma. He said they are only the manager for. You should ask the government. So what kind of system is this? And now you are coming back for funds again. We are talking about hundreds of millions. So who would be held accountable? You said you always say we are standing in your way. So just go on with your excavations. When Mr. Wong Kok Heng was still district councillor, he said there were delays in the works at Admiralty Station because of Occupy Central. Well, this is all politics. I've never seen it before from other administrations. You are at a vulnerable side on the bargaining table, and you are saying that you are doing this and that, and in order to attract lower bids, then this is what I have to do. Well, of course, then people would take advantage of you. This is about a problem in policy making. In 5 years, CY Leung had to maintain excess capacity. So who would be held accountable at the end? Is it the GEO and the Buildings Department? Your time's up, Mr. Leung Hong, and you did not raise a question. I did. So who would be held accountable? So please wait for the next round. Ms. Tanya Chen, 4 minutes. Thank you. You either blame hard rock conditions or soft soil at Ho Man Tin Station. It's a interchange station at between the Ho Man Tin line and SCL. Ho Man Tin Station is already commissioned. When did you find out that there were problems with soil conditions? In the year 2010. I have on hand a PWSC supplementary paper, and in the year 2010, after a series of investigation, designs were modified involving Diamond Hill Station, Matawai Station, the former Tai Ham village, and there were boulders, and Hong Ham Station was also mentioned. So when did you find out about the conditions? Does it mean that the MTR Corporation's investigation works were substandard, especially at Ho Man Tin Station? Thank you. Dr. Philko Wong. Ho Man Tin Station involved the advanced works of SCL because it's an interchange station. So advanced works for the SCL had to be conducted. Works at Ho Man Tin Station started in 2011 or 12 when the contractor started work. They could carry out excavation, and they found that the place of the station, the erosions were quite serious, and blasting was necessary at that site due to the serious erosions. The safety measures had to be enhanced because it's located next to Chatham Road. So the work required and costs were escalated. When did you find out? Around 2012. What about Admiralty Station? Mr. Ken Wong. Thank you. At Admiralty Station, when we conducted excavation works at around 2012, we found that it was harder to excavate the rocks than expected. And the works under the underpinning works of the main tunnel structure, due to the land conditions, we had to reinforce the stabilization works. We had to consider safety, and as such, we impose additional stabilization works. And in terms of the monitoring or supervision, we had to enhance accuracy. We had to take out around-the-clock monitoring, and as such, the prices went up. Past papers have explained that the Director of Highways led a railway monitoring committee, and they also hired a consultant. Did they involve government staff, and when did they learn about such works? Mr. Daniel Chung. As for the dates, I don't have the information on hand. We can offer details after the meeting. If so, can they also share the composition of the project monitoring committee? The committee is headed by the Director of Highways, which is myself. There are representatives from MTRC, including Dr. Wong and some of my team. Can they offer a response in writing, whether there are any third-party members? Next, Mr. Edward Lau, 4 minutes. Thank you. And set aside the unfavorable land conditions, what's the maximum cost for the railway sections? And there were delays in the SCL works, and there are also delays with the additional 800 million. Did you assess whether further funds might be needed in the future? This question has been asked and answered for the Section 63 TR. Mr. Yao said that no additional funds would be sought. I have no further questions. Next, Dr. KK Kwok. First round, 4 minutes. Chairman. These infrastructure works are like black holes, and it has become a norm to seek more funds at LegCo, and it's getting more and more serious. I'm not sure if the government is to be blamed. Now you are seeking an extra $800 million for the Highways Department or policy bureaus. Are they to be blamed for geo investigations? It's hard to convince the public. At the time, well, the MOT station is not new. It has been here for a long time. why did you seek funds before conducting site investigation? And some of the grounds are not reasonable. They said round-the-clock work was required and overtime work was needed. So those were the responsibilities of the contractor. If they could secure a tender and midway through the project, they could say that they need more money and they can ask for more money. And if LegCo doesn't approve it, then you are accusing LegCo for standing in the way of the works. But every time there's a cost overrun, the government does not have to shoulder any responsibility, and they have all kinds of excuses. And the government officials and MTRC do not have to be showed any responsibility. And in paragraph 23 of the paper, the MTRC is charging 212 million less in project management costs. This is ridiculous. The MTRCL will operate the line and they will reap all the profits, but they would not take up any responsibility. The original 500 million was overestimated, and now since the cost overrun is so serious, they have to slash it. And Mr. Yao, the Undersecretary, is not here. The MTRCL was doing something unscrupulous. So the original estimate was excessive, and now, after all these issues, they decided to charge less. There's no free lunch. Something must have happened leading to this decision. So did MTRCL do something unethical? Well, the government is the biggest shareholder at more than 70%. And so it means that the original figures were excessive. So can you tell us, frankly, how much has the MTRCL cheated the Hong Kong people? The director has already addressed this question. Can the director explain this adjustment? Please answer my question. I've been following this meeting. As of today, is the MTRCL deceiving Hong Kong people? We are not talking about small sums. For the MTRCL officers here, are they continuing to deceive Hong Kong people? That's my question to you, Undersecretary. All the figures we shared are well grounded, as the director has explained. If you have heard his explanation, well, I have nothing further to add. This is outrageous. The MTRCL has been overcharging, and you are allowing them to continue. Mr. Nathan Law, 3 minutes, please.
Well, he's not in the chamber. Dr. K.K. Kwok, your second round, 3 minutes. Chairman, I'd like to give more time for the Undersecretary to give me a better answer. We see now that either the Bureau is not monitoring the MTRC properly, or you are simply, indulging them. Because these things shouldn't have happened. If somebody had done something like this and over-exaggerated the amount, and they realize there's a mistake and that they are making deductions afterwards, this is like fraud. If the, decoration contractor performed in a similar manner, you would have dismissed him. The Undersecretary is telling us that there's nothing he can do. Will the government continue to condone such, acts, because you are, feeding the MTRC with all these, profitable projects, and the MTRC can continue to cheat us, and out of these such taxpayers' money. Well, I don't think there is any basis in that allegation. The director already explained the rationale for the adjustments. If members so wish, I'd like to ask the chairman to the director to explain the reason for the adjustments. Chairman, in paragraph 23, we say that in 2011 we had reserved more than $700 million for the MTRC to help us manage the advanced works. Well, this was based on a tentative percentage of 16.5%, and both sides agreed that it was only a tentative figure. When the Sha-Tin Central Link design was progressing and towards the end, we took a detailed look at the complexity and the scale of this project with the MTRCL. We also engaged an independent consultant to help us look at the whole project and consider how much the management fee should make up in percentage terms, and eventually we agreed on a lower percentage, and that is why we have this adjustment. Director, everything is actually a black hole. You first have a figure, and then you have a consultant, and then we now have this deduction. The public is now seeing what a mess this is. The MTRC is a public organization. They can ask for so much, and then in the end, they give you such a small concession. So I think in the Finance Committee we have to ask how these figures are arrived at. It's not a small sum. We're talking about more than 200 million. Why don't you tell me honestly, for some of the forthcoming projects, how much room does the MTRC has for making similar deductions? Why don't we ask the director to answer first? For each project, when we sign an entrustment agreement with the MTRCL, at that time we would decide on the size of the amount of the management fees. So before the work starts, we would have agreed on that already. For the railway projects which are ongoing, the management fee has already been decided and it cannot be adjusted further. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 4 minutes for your first round. Chairman, my first question is, which contractor was responsible for the surveying works for this project? Dr. Wong, for the surveying firm, there are many such firms in Hong Kong, all of them have the requisite licenses and standards. So far I cannot give you the name. How about the Admiralty Station? Which contractor? Dr. Wong, I'm not sure. Just now, there could be a few, but I don't want to give you a wrong answer. Well, that is really, bad, because in paragraph 6 you say that during the expansion of Admiralty Station, the surveying done at the time, you did not understand you did not realize about the gaps in the rocks. So when they did the drilling, did they touch on such rocks? You've not been able to answer the question today. So what? So are you saying that so long as you have enough votes in this chamber, youth council, it'll be all right for you? You don't even know which contractor was responsible for such work. Who should be responsible? You don't know. What's the name of the company? You don't know. In 2008. You receive, more than $2 billion for the surveying works, and now you're telling us that there are many contractors. Which one is it really? Which contractor? Nobody has to be responsible. No company has to be responsible. Why is the government, doing things in such a manner? Mr. Tam, I think he has answered your question many times. Who? I'm not getting any answers. It's not which company. It's about what is the name of the company, but rather the geological surveying was done according to the geo guide. Dr. Wong, do you have anything else to supplement in response to Mr. Tam's question? The geological survey works is such that they were performed by a contractor designated by the buildings department, and the contractor would need to satisfy certain standards. In the course of the survey, based on the geo guide, they will work according to the geo guide when conducting the surveying works. Members are concerned as to why the findings of the geological survey would turn out to be different from the actual state of the rocks, because the survey only survey part of the rocks, and when work started, the situation turned out to be different. Well, I asked these series of questions because I want to avoid, a recurrence of these mistakes. You don't even know. Well, you're telling us that you don't even know which was the company, what is responsible for the mistake. You have all these incidents of cost overruns, and you're coming up with all kinds of excuses. So, what about the answer to my question? Could you tell me which company was in charge of this Admiralty project? I haven't quite finished yet, Chairman. Why don't you have more patience? I think I cannot. I haven't even finished. Say which paper I'm referring to. Chairman, to go back to the earlier question, when we conduct, geological surveys, the extent to which the findings actually reflect the actual situation underground, we have to take into consideration several factors. For example, the number of holes that we have drilled and the location where those drills are, and we are subject to all kinds of constraints. What sort of constraints did you face at Admiralty? I was going to say that the representatives of the MTRCL could perhaps supplement further to help members understand why the result in front of us what actually is different from the actual situation underground. Could we be given the paper concerning the geological investigation, the consultants' report, and the geological investigation report? They may not need to submit the whole report, but perhaps can give us an extract and also explain why there's a discrepancy between the findings of the study and the actual situation. Chairman, I can give you the name of the company. Why don't you give us the name in writing? Okay, sure. Mr. Tung Chung, 4 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to say this to those members of the public watching us live now. Once again, we are looking at another instance of cost overrun, and the electrical is once again turned into an ATM, and they're asking us for money. So what exactly is cost overrun? Well, what it means is that initially somebody didn't do the sums accurately, and the work could not progress unless they come back for more funding. After the handover, we have cost overruns for many projects. The 10 core projects, they asked for 160 million. In the end, they will make a saving of 800 million. And for the Chinwan line and Kunton line, they were able to make savings when they completed the project. Why is it that in recent years, for major infrastructure projects, we are seeing cost overruns again and again? And that means taxpayers have to foot the bill. The officials who are present today are rather embarrassed because of these such cost overruns. And I shall repeat the questions asked by members. That is, whether, for example, whether after this time they will not seek any additional provision for 63 TR. We don't know yet. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask the Bureau this question. I'll ask some short questions, and please give me a short answer. Could you tell the public how much money you are asking for? I know it's stated in the paper. Well, the paper states clearly that we are applying to increase the approved project estimate by $847 million. Of the $800 million, one official said that part of that is about the consultancy fees. Well, how much was the consultancy fee? Under Secretary, in para 23, it is clearly stipulated that the government intends to adjust the management costs downwards to 498 million. The reduction is 212 million. According to the bill, I have to say this to those members of the public that originally they want to rob you of 160 million, now 600 million. Now they made a saving of 200 million, so you'll be robbed by 400 million. So this is project management. For what does project management fee entails? Does it entail a lot of work to be done? I'd like to invite members of the paper. There is a footnote in Annex 1 which explains that the project management fee is to pay for the MTRC's technical studies, design, work monitoring, and contract management and so on. Do you need to spend 400 million on a study, another 400 million on design and so on? We're talking 400 million, not $4. Is the other 400 million related to the works? Well, the whole amount is 400 million. Well, in that case, of the 400 million, we were told about the consultancy fee and consultant fee and the management fee. You're asking the people of Hong Kong to pay 800 million right this moment, right? Well, our application is for $847 million. Time's up. Mr. Leung Kok Hong, your second round, 3 minutes. Last time, I asked you whether it was the geotechnical office or the housing department who should be accountable because they only, it was because they didn't ask the questions. Then of course you have to be held liable because they're waiting for you to ask the questions. Let's clear this point first. So who should be accountable? The MTRC and Frederick Ma said that it's not my responsibility. We only charge a commission. If anything should go wrong, you go to the government. Are we the ATM machine? They're asking for 800 million. Now, Mr. Kwong, you're a novelist. Even you don't have the imagination. We are paying the MTRC so that they can reduce the cost overrun. Without the MTRC, they will be asking for 1.8 billion, and now they're saying that it will be down. So it's up to them to say. The MTRC is charging so much, there's cost overrun. Are you saying that without the MTRC, your cost overrun will be even more serious? Please answer the question first. That is in your calculation. You have asked the MTRCR to be the operator. Have you planned for cost overrun to be more than 800 million? Now it's 800 million, and therefore you are telling us there is a saving. What is the role of the MTRCL? Mr. Yao. I'll ask the Director of Highways to explain that estimates, expenses on these projects are monitored by the Highways Department. Oh, that won't be necessary. You're refusing to answer the question. The MTRC is useless. We pay them for the works, and they keep on, coming up with cost overruns. Mr. Yao. If somebody were to refurnish your home, you engage a big main contractor, you sign a contract asking him to decorate your flat. Originally, the cost is $250,000. The contractor says, I only charge a commission. The subcontractor asks for $400,000, and then you say, well, he's done a good job. Let's continue to pay him. For the extra $150,000, the main contractor will still charge a 5% commission. For senior officials like yourselves, including chairman, would you sign a contract like that? We're only talking about refurnishing your home. The contractor say to you, I'm sorry, when I did the drilling, the drill hit some steel and so on. I mean, would you accept that? Isn't that all included in a contract? What kind of a contractor is that? Mr. Kwang Chung Yu, 3 minutes for your second round. I don't think we have 3 minutes before we adjourn. We are scheduled to finish at 1. We have 4 items which have been approved today, and they will be forwarded to the FC for deliberation. For these 4 items, are there any members who would like them to be voted separately? Dr. Yeo, which one? Which paper would you like to be voted on separately? All 4. Right. We've come to the end of our meeting today. Thank you very much. We adjourn.
好，唔該。